And welcome to the 2024 Candidates Forum in the town of Southbridge. We have done this in years past. We have 4 candidates who are going to be running for the town council, and they're here tonight. One thing that's really nice part of Southbridge is that there's always a contest. Last year, we had 8 candidates for 3 seats. The year before, we had 9 candidates for 3 seats. The problem was that we couldn't really get into a discussion or a debate as much as we'd like. Today, we have 4 candidates. 4 candidates that are part of that are running for 3 seats for 3 years. I don't know why they do it. I really don't. It's a thankless job, but it's a job that people care enough to do, and hopefully you'll care enough to vote. We're taping this show, and we're broadcasting live, of course, if you're tuned in, on the 23rd of May, just a couple of weeks before the election, which is going to take place on June 11th. Polls open at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they run till about 8 o'clock at night. That gives you plenty of time to vote, but I was told by the town clerk's office just about a half hour ago that 1,500 ballots have actually been sent out in the community for people who actually requested to vote, and they can vote by mail. That's a lot of people. Hopefully we can do a little better than 9%, because that's what we did last time we had the annual town election. This is something that's important. It's something that's important to do, and something that you'll want to be part of course, and we'll run that number over the 9%. I'd like to introduce the candidates to you first, and we're going to go from left to right. There are 4 of them, and again, I appreciate the amount of work and time and effort that you all put in. They're all familiar faces, people that have served in the town in one capacity or another. So let's start with Scott Lazo. He's currently a candidate, of course. He's the incumbent, one of the 2 incumbents that we have running for re-election, Scott Lazo on the far left. Then we have Steve Kelly, who ran last year and is serving, I believe, Steve, you're running on the general court, or you're serving in the general court subcommittee, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then we've got, familiar face with Jackie Ryan. She's served on the school committee before. She's looking to serve again on the town council, as she finished up a term just fairly recently last year, looking to get elected. And then John Daniel, the other incumbent that we have up front there, who is currently part of the town council. We have a format that we follow. In years past, we haven't been able to follow a format that allowed discussion and debate because we had so many candidates up there. The fact that we only have 4, that actually speaks well for tonight, because we're going to have a chance to discuss things in a much more thorough content and a much more interactive content as well. Candidates will be able to interrupt each other. Candidates will be able to talk to each other, debate each other if necessary. And we'll have some time formats to do that, and we'll get started with that. How are we going to keep track of the time? We're going to do it this way. We're going to have a time, a very sophisticated time. No expense has been spared for this particular debate. Take a look at what you have there, and you can take a shot at that, and we can see it up on the screen. When the green light goes on, you know what to do. That's when you start talking. You'll have a minute, we're going to allow you 2 minutes for your opening comments. When you see the yellow light, you have 15 seconds left. Once you see the yellow light, you have 15 seconds left. If you see the red light and you hear from me, it means you're talking, and I'm going to interrupt you. No pressure, but this is how the format's going to go. However, once we start asking questions, we'll discuss how we're going to time those. Let's start with Scott Lazo in opening statements. And Scott, you go ahead and tell us what you need to tell us to get started.
Well, first of all, Rich, I thank you very much for...
And you have 2 minutes, by the way.
Yeah, thank you very much. Gus Teves, Maureen Doyle, thank you very much for putting on forum. It's always nice to be at a debate. I haven't been at one in a little while. I think it's healthy, and we are going to debate tonight the issues and not get into personalities. My name is Scott Lazo. I started serving in the town of Southbridge back in 1985. I've served in many capacities. I've been chairman of your school committee when you had a level 1 high school. I have served on the building committee of the middle high school. I've coached Pop Warner for over 17 years. Married, raised 5 kids that all went to the Southbridge school system, and all are doing very well. I lost my wife 6 years ago. I continue to serve. When you ask the question, why do they do this? I do it for the love of my community. I was brought up in an era in Southbridge where you always gave back. There's only one person in the chamber that's been here longer than me. That would be Martina Shea, and I salute you. You're still running for office. This is what Southbridge residents do. I'm the gentleman that brought up Southbridge First agenda. You are the people that put the councilors in place to create a team to move mountains in the last few years. I think you're going to continue to put people in office that can move the Southbridge First agenda. And Southbridge First agenda is you put this town first at all costs. We are hiring more local employees now from the town of Southbridge in the town hall, at the DPW, in various departments because of Southbridge First agenda. We will continue to work hard for you if you allow us to hold the office. I'm honored to hold the office, and I want to continue to hold office so we can complete so many great ideas as we go forward. We'll be discussing them here tonight. Thank you very much, Rich.
Scott, thank you. In 1985, that's about when I came to town. Actually, you were one of the first people I met on a business deal, and I really appreciate the amount of time that you've put in to this town, serving on multiple committees. I mean, you're an old-timer for sure for here. Maybe not in age, but certainly in service to the town. Thank you. Steve Kelly, you've got a couple of minutes. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and all the people who have put this on. I thank you for the opportunity to participate in this forum. My name is Steve Kelly. I am a relatively new resident to Southbridge. I moved here in 2015. But prior to that, I have a long record of public service. I'm an attorney, and I started my career in the United States Air Force as an active duty judge advocate. I rose to the rank of lieutenant colonel, and I retired and moved back to my native Massachusetts. Initially moved back to my hometown, which was Northborough, but eventually came out here, and I fell in love with this town. I continue to be a public servant. I'm a public defender in Worcester, and I serve indigent populations, people who can't afford a lawyer, people who really need defense. So I have a long history of public service, and I believe strongly in public service. I had good examples as a child. Both my parents were very involved. My mother, a member of the school committee for almost 3 decades, and served the town until she was about 80 years old. My father, a lifelong member of the Lions Club in town, and also the Knights of Columbus. So public service is something that is kind of almost in my blood. The reason I want to serve on town council is because I feel I have a lot to offer this town, and I love this town. I see this town as struggling, but there are so many great things about this town that we can capitalize on. A great downtown, for instance, what we can do to bring business in, and I'd love to see more local people open businesses in town. Thank you.
Steve, thank you very much. And boy, we appreciate the efforts that you've been putting in the town as well since 2015. Jackie Ryan, I know that you've been involved with the school committee. You were a counselor, of course, and you're coming back for another term.
Yes, but first I just want to say thank you to Rich, thank you to Gus and Maureen. You all always put on a wonderful forum and debate. I always appreciate it. I think it gives the voters clarity about what people are running for and what they want to do here in town. My name is Jackie. I've been a longtime public servant since I was 18 years old. I've been doing this for, oh gosh, my birthday was yesterday, 11 years now. I do this because I care about my community for the long term. I'm running for council because I want to fight for the issues that are affecting me and my generation. It's no secret that up here I'm the youngest one, right? And I represent a different generation that has different needs than the people up here. One of those big needs is housing. We need a long-term plan to provide more supply for actual housing here in the community to help keep and retain our kids, to help keep families together. That in the long term will set us up for success. I want to continue down the path of economic development work that we've done over the last, during my first term. I want to expand and focus on expanding bus routes and keeping the fare-free busing that we have here in the community because it's working. Both businesses and equity groups would agree with that. I really want to do the good work that's going to help make Southbridge more affordable to the next generation. It's critical that we have a council that is focused on housing, on affordability, on economic development, on the key building blocks that are needed to secure a good future for our next generation. You know, at the end of the day, what I want to hand off is something better than what I got handed. And it's becoming harder and harder for so many people in my generation to believe that. So the way we start changing those beliefs is by doing the work and coming up with innovative solutions for the crises we see here in the community. I look forward to this debate. I look forward to the discussion. And in the end, I think Southbridge will be better for it.
And thank you, Jackie. And now, John Daniel, a couple of minutes.
Thank you. I want to begin by thanking the forum sponsors, Gus, Maureen, and Rich, for making this forum happen. I also want to thank my fellow candidates for town council for being here. It is important for Southbridge's citizens to hear from the candidates and make informed decisions when they mark their ballots for their choices for town council. Again, my name is John Daniel, and I am running for re-election to the town council. I was born and raised in Southbridge and truly appreciate all the opportunity that the town has given me over the years. As my life changed, I felt there had come a time when I would run for office to serve and give back to this wonderful community. It has been my very great honor and privilege to serve the citizens of Southbridge for the last 6 years on town council. I've served as the council chair, the council vice chair, and have been a chairperson of Planning and Development Subcommittee and have held membership on DPW and education as well. I thank you for taking a few minutes out of your busy lives to listen to me and the other candidates as we touch on some of the important issues affecting Southbridge on a daily basis. I hope that as a result of tonight's forum, you will come to know me a bit better. Your vote does count, and as a result of this forum, I hope you will consider voting for me to return to council. Thank you.
Thank you, John Daniel, and 6 years on the town council, and you're coming back for more. Appreciate that, the incumbent. So we have the incumbent Scott Lazo, Steve Kelly, and Jackie Ryan, and the incumbent again, John Daniel. So I did want to thank Gus Steves for doing the questions and writing up the questions and really organizing this. And I did want to thank Maureen, she's our expert timekeeper over there, and for her input into the questions as well. We did send out just a notice in the Southbridge News that we were hoping to get some input from citizens as well, and we actually did. We got some input from questions of the citizens, and I want to start off with one of the citizens' questions right now. It's not going to be on the screen. It's something that they just asked me to do this, and I think it's a real good idea to start off. And I'm going to just go right down the line on this particular one, and we're not really going to time this. No, because this is only going to be about 15 seconds. I want you to just tell me, and don't elaborate on the issues, tell me your most important issue to you for the town of Southbridge. And we go down the line, and we'll start with you, Scott. And then what the second most important issue is. Take about 15 seconds. You don't need to tell us how you're going to solve it, because we're going to get into that later.
Could you repeat that, please?
All I want you to do is tell us the two most important issues that you feel Southbridge is facing right now.
First of all, one of the top issues is financial stability in the town of Southbridge. And second, I'm going to put the schools right with it. And I think we'll be having our school, we'll talk about that more as we go along.
We definitely
But
will. Scott, and what was that first item?
Financial stability of
Financial
Southbridge.
stability, okay. I just want to go down the list, and we'll make a list here. And Steve, 2 issues that are most important to this town of Southbridge right now.
I'd put the schools first, ending receivership, number 1, and followed by economic development in town. And I don't think the 2 are separate. I think that one goes hand in hand with the other.
Jackie, how about you? 2 most important issues that Southbridge faces right now, off the top of your head.
Housing and education, because they're inextricably linked together. You need to have both succeed if you want to have a thriving community.
And I did hear that you mentioned housing actually in your opening statements too, that you mentioned that was important. So I kind of
It's an issue
expected
important
that.
to my generation.
I would think so. John Daniel, the 2 most important issues Southbridge faces right now.
I think infrastructure improvement, meaning roads and buildings in town, and of course the schools.
And my automobile appreciates the infrastructure concern for sure. Boy, I don't know about you, but I've been to the shop too much to talk about the mufflers. I mean, not the mufflers, talk about the shock absorbers. But I do appreciate. You said the infrastructure, and the second item was?
The schools.
And the schools as well. So everybody's got the schools listed, which is kind of unusual in a way, because how much input does the town council have with the schools? Yes, we're going to talk to the school committee a little bit later on after this forum, but the schools is really big, and of course the receivership was mentioned too as one of the big issues at the school. Now I would like to get into some of the questions, because those issues that you brought up were all being addressed in some of the questions that we have. You're going to have, I'm going to pick a name out of the hat. That person is going to answer the first question that I ask. And once they do that, you'll have, as a group, 5 minutes to discuss between you that issue. And if you want to chime in, if you're the person that answers the question first, you can still chime in and take part of the discussion that follows. You have 2 minutes to answer this question, John Daniel. Your name got picked. And let's start with question number 2. The town has just started a housing plan process. How do you see our housing stock today, the ongoing projects to add to it, and what do we need to do to improve it, driving long-time residents without driving long-time residents out of the community?
Okay.
It's really about housing affordability, basically.
Yes, it is. I think that we need to encourage housing development responsibly, and I think it needs to be developed at multiple levels. I think first off, we need to look to our less fortunate citizens and make a concerted effort to provide for them. If people are living out on the streets, or if people are just barely getting by because they're running 2 or 3 jobs, that's not a quality of life that we'd like to see in this town. I think that if we can make a concerted effort to provide for them and help them through various means that are available to the town, like through the Planning and Development Committee, through bylaws, modification of bylaws, I think that would go a long way toward helping out. I think that we do need to pay attention, though, to upper-level needs as well, in terms of condominium development, in terms of potentially townhouse development as well, to provide for those needs for larger families and for up-and-coming citizens as well.
Now, we could take a little bit of time to discuss that, because everybody needs to have a chance to answer this question. But rather than just give us a staid answer, let's have a discussion regarding that. Hasn't Southbridge already started on the process of bringing in some affordable housing? Why don't we discuss that? Jackie, you seem to be anxious to speak.
Oh, yes. We had started that process, and I think we need to do more in terms of that process. Unfortunately, there's just not enough supply here in the community. That's a fact. There is not enough housing to meet the needs of our current population and to meet the current needs of our families. It's why we're losing kids to other states and other countries. It's because we don't have enough truly affordable housing. Now, there's a lot we could be doing at the local level to be dealing with that. We can help create an atmosphere to help create partnerships between state and federal agencies and local business owners, local landlords to help revitalize some of these, especially these old mill properties that are sitting there doing nothing. Let's revitalize them and use them for our community's sake to help keep our kids here, keep our brain talent here in town. That should be common sense.
There's got to be a big cost to what you're talking about, Jackie, you know,
Which is
buying
why
up buildings and all that.
This is why you work with state and federal agencies to help get that funding allocated. Yes, it's going to require some sort of funding commitment from the community as large, but we also have to say, as a community, what do we value? I value keeping our families together. I value keeping our brain talent here. I value keeping all the economic opportunity and all the talent we can keep here. So I think that's a worthwhile investment, and it's something that would speak to people in my generation and help keep them here.
Scott, I mean, you've got
I want to actually elaborate a little further about this. I can guarantee you this, I will not use her age or inexperience on what she said. Seems to be age is a generational thing, and I seem to be one of the elders here. But I don't hold age and inexperience against her. You need a balance in housing. Right now, we have people beating the drum, low-income housing, low-income housing, low-income housing. Let's use the example. Experience is your best teacher. The Mary E. Wells project was a fantastic project. They revitalized the building, pristine, housing. Who are the majority of the residents? You're from Worcester Housing Authority. Yes, there are Southbridge residents there. I don't mind creating housing for Southbridge, but what's happening is the AO did a housing over 55 also. And if you go into the housing, those are not Southbridge residents. They were surrounding towns in Worcester, city of Worcester. So we're going to build housing, and it starts Worcester.
Steve?
What I think we need to do is balance it, because we need a high end, medium end, and low end. We have plenty of low-income housing in Southbridge.
That's not true.
Yeah,
Not enough.
Depends what you want to be when you grow up.
And I hear Jackie, and I do hear Scott, you know, because he's balancing the costs and all that. That is got to be an issue for sure. I mean, Steve, why don't you chime in as well?
Thank you. So I may be in my 60s, but I have kids with college loans in their 20s. So I'm well aware of how the current economy is affecting that population. And it is a struggle when you're dealing with $100,000 college loans, when you're trying to pay a rent of $2,000 a month on almost a minimum wage salary. It's a struggle. That said, the housing crisis that we're experiencing now is regional. It's not just Southbridge. It's regional. And it's mainly due to supply. The real estate market is almost a pure supply and demand market. And if there's low supply, there's going to be high prices. So what you have to do is you have to increase supply, but not just subsidized housing, because that's not going to help improve the economics of the town. What's going to help improve the economics of the town is market rate housing, and together with some subsidized housing. Obviously, we need to help people who are impoverished.
Any idea what the average rent is in Southbridge? Does anybody know?
I believe it's about $1,500 a month for
Yeah, that may even be on the low side. It's amazing that when we see some of the costs of some of the rentals, I mean, it's everywhere. It's just not a Southbridge problem, but
yes.
This was an important issue for sure.
But Southbridge prices are not high compared to other towns in the area. I'd also like to point out that we have a lot of multifamily housing in this town. And when I drive around the town, I see a lot of dilapidated and run-down housing, poor quality housing. We need to incentivize our landlords, many of whom are out of town, who don't live here, and some are even out of state. We need to incentivize them to to rehab those buildings as well. So yes, we have a supply problem. Southbridge alone is not going to fix it. Thank you.
Maureen, I think we pretty much exhausted the total 5 minutes amongst the group. Is that right? Okay, I just wanted to be sure. It's as the group goes through, they have 5 minutes as a total. And feel free to talk amongst yourself if you hear something that you disagree with. I know, Jackie, you disagreed with something that Scott said. That's fair game in this particular discussion. I think it serves well because it's more like a council meeting when we do that. Appreciate the answers for the questions. Let's go to the next question that we have, and let's take a look at the economic development question, which is TC3 on your list there, Charlie. And by the way, Charlie Diaz is handling all the cameras, he's handling all the graphics, and he's handling all the microphones right in the back room. And thank you for your help, Charlie. The economic development is a perennial issue, especially in an area of growing corporate consolidation. I got a question for you, and this question will be directed to Jackie Ryan. How can Southbridge promote small local business, and what kinds of businesses do we really need to promote local resilience? What regulations might need to be changed to do so? Jackie?
That's a really great question, Rich. Thank you. So one of the things we need to do, and if you actually want to cut taxes in the long term, investing in economic development and expanding the economic base is how you do it. I'm not going to be like some up here saying I'm going to cut your taxes by cutting spending, because that's not realistic. That's not reality. The way you want, if you really want to cut taxes for everyone, is by expanding the economic base, by adding more businesses to the community and helping support those businesses through economic development grants. By doing that, you make the tax base more diverse. You have those businesses take up more of those tax dollars, which means less of a tax burden on homeowners here in the community. It's simple economics. Now, the way you expand that is by making investments in economic development, which during my time on the town council we did. You make investments into infrastructure. Making investments into infrastructure is the #1 way to attract businesses to the community. For every dollar you spend in infrastructure spending, you get $1.10 back in economic activity. So, by doing that, by making, by making those investments, you are setting the long-term success of the town in putting it in a place that is going to be beneficial. On top of that, one of the biggest ways you can help attract economic development work here in town is by fixing the school system. If you don't have a properly functioning school system, you're going to have a hard time attracting businesses because they're going to not see the talent there that they need for their businesses. So taking back our schools, investing in economic development work, and helping expand the economic base, those are the 3 key things you need to do if you really want to expand and grow a community.
There's that school system issue again. We got about 5 minutes, and Maureen, if you can set the timer to 5 minutes, we want to go with 5 minutes discussion amongst the 4 of you. Feel free to jump in.
If I can just comment on economic development, I've heard this rhetoric for the last 15, 20 years. But we are doing it now. We are going to make Central Street a one-way street going down, widening the sidewalks to make a restaurant district. We're going to put the green arrows back on Main Street so the citizens can have the lights work the way they used to work. The economic development isn't in housing, it's in businesses. Living in the town is one thing. Becoming a destination like Putnam, you can have a restaurant district. We're building the sidewalks off Central Street to be 1 lane. All that work that we're doing in there, we're going to turn around and make it a destination so not just Southbridge residents come here. People are going to want to come to our restaurants. We have 7 liquor licenses that we were awarded by the state. Our Mr. Daniels can comment to this. He's worked hard on it. To bring in those liquor licenses for businesses like restaurants, to be in the restaurant district. Our economic development director is probably one of the most spectacular ones in Central Mass. That's how you build. You do it. You don't talk about it. Thank you.
7 liquor licenses. Are those in addition to what we had in the past? Is that right?
Say that again?
The 7 liquor licenses, are those in addition to what we've had in the
Yes.
past? Yeah. So we've got those in addition to what we had.
Correct.
Anybody else want to
We
chime
need
in?
more than restaurants, though.
What's that?
We need more than restaurants. You can't just talk about restaurants. We have so many restaurants here and in towns around us. You need entertainment opportunities as well for families here in town. You need a dog park. You need things that are going to help attract people, because it's not just restaurants that are going to attract people to Southbridge, because if that's the case, they'll go next door where there are plenty more restaurants. That's not the only thing we need to be talking about. We need to diversify the amount and type of businesses we have in the community, not just restaurants.
May I? Thank you.
Go ahead.
No, that's okay, Scott. You can interrupt. I mean, we've
First of
got
all-
5 minutes amongst ourselves.
First of all, the kind of restaurants that the kind of businesses we do need restaurants downtown. People who attract downtown, to drive business, to spend money. That's how people who spend money help our economy, all right? A park is great. I'm in favor of parks, but a park isn't going to help people spend money. What's going to help people spend money is things that attract them to our town, to the downtown area. We have a beautiful downtown. I'd love to see it refurbished and completed with restaurants, with cafes, with bakeries, with artisan businesses, not retail. Retail today, storefront retail doesn't work today because of Amazon and because people like to shop online. You have to have unique businesses, like artisan businesses. There are many, many examples where towns like our town, which are former factory towns, have been able to come back, and they've done it with that kind of a mix. They've done it with a mix of restaurants, with a mix of artisan businesses, and bakeries and cafes. People come, they want to hang out, they want to sit. We can have sidewalk dining. I mean, that's the kind of thing that's going to drive business. It's going to attract people to town. It's going to attract people to stay in town and live here and work here. I would love to see us be able to take some funds and offer loans, business loans to local people to build the kind of businesses that we need. But that's what's going to improve our town is businesses that are going to attract people to come here and spend money.
Scott, it looks like you wanted to add something.
Again, I use that as one example. I'm not saying restaurants is a save-all. I'm saying that if we become a destination, one thing about restaurants, they bring entertainment. When we had 12 Crane Street was packed, and they left 12 Crane Street at 10 o'clock at night after the entertainment, and they went to all the local establishments. That's economic development. That's the example I'm giving you. Become the destination. I want to compete with Sturbridge. I'm not rolling over for Sturbridge. Never
John-
have, never will.
We're not going to be the destination, though, unless there's a reason for the businesses to come here to begin with. There needs to be some set of circumstances that the business says, I want to be in Southbridge. So, for instance, we've begun that process by, when Main Street was rebuilt, we put in laterals for sprinkler systems for the buildings so that if people will buy the buildings and use them appropriately, they can hook up to the sprinklers that need to be done to bring up to code. We also need to continue the work of the Economic and Development Department. Peg Dean has done a wonderful job, but we need to look at revamping bylaws to make the town more business friendly, and we need to look more into grants and marketing, just generally speaking, of the town, and not being afraid to spend a few dollars on marketing the town and what benefits that we already have in place.
5 minutes goes by quickly, and we've pretty much exhausted this. I'll give you about 10 seconds.
I would also say we need to look at the permitting structure and make sure we reduce those fees so there's not such an onus on new businesses trying to start up here in town.
Scott, I had a question about something that you said. You mentioned the left arrow green. Are you talking the one that goes into, what, Elm Street?
Yes.
Off the Main Street?
The town, once we make Central Street a one-way street going down,
Okay.
and we make it a one lane with the sidewalks poked out for dining,
You know everybody wants that
what
left
they're
arrow
going to do
back.
is they're going to change the lights.
I mean, that's probably the most exciting thing you've
Department of
said all
Public
night,
Works-
actually. You
Our
know,
Department
that
of-
left arrow is going back.
Our Department of Public Works said, the minute we do that, we may bring back both arrows
Yep.
like it was. Because, you know, the one thing why they have erasers on pencils, because DOT made a mistake, and we're going to erase it.
All right, sometimes new is always not better, and I always wondered about that, too. Good to hear, and good discussion, and thank you for all participating. Let's go to question number 4, TC4, and I'll pick the name out. Here's your question, Steve Kelly. Jack Joven has been the town manager for less than a year now, kind of a newbie when it comes to town managership. but certainly not to the town. What are your thoughts on his performance to date, his strengths and weaknesses, and what would you want to see him do next year if you get elected? Steve?
Well, I think Jack has actually done a very good job. He came in, frankly, to quite a bit of a mess, things that had been neglected, hadn't been done, things that needed to be done. He got right on it, and he was able to correct a lot of some of the things that have been neglected. So he's still in a learning phase, I believe, and being a town councilor, being even chairman of the town council is a little different than being actually the everyday manager of an organization like the town of Southbridge, which is really a big company when you think about it, and all the people that he has to manage. So he is in a learning phase. Going forward, I'd like to see him continue on the path that he's on right now. He works very well with the committees in town. He works, and from what I can tell, the town council as well. And I would like to see him continue to learn and to take that learning, a step further. With regard to hiring and personnel issues. But I think he's on a really good path right now.
Now we've got a discussion. We'll open it up now to the floor there for 5 minutes, if you'd like.
I think Jack has done a yeoman's job since he's taken over as town manager. He's developed a leadership team. He speaks as a common man. He listens before he acts, but he's not afraid to act when he has to, and he's made some tough decisions along the line so far. He is very, very organized and very thoughtful in his process. He is always thinking ahead. There's always an option B or a plan B or a plan C even when he decides what it is that needs to be done. He doesn't just rely on one option and then go with that. He's always thinking forward about the what ifs. What if I need to do this? Well, what if this happens? How does this go? So he's very good about that. In terms of where I'd like to see him go in the future, I think that he's going to need another year to really put together what needs to be done in terms of setting the town straight. As Mr. Kelly alluded to, there were some serious issues that the town needs to deal with, and he's still dealing with them, and his leadership team that he's put together is also working on them. So I'd like to see him continue working on that, and then we can, as a council, give him some more projects to deal with, to branch him out some more.
Communication skills and all that. Any comments about Jack Jovan? Scott?
Steve Kelly hit it on the head. Mr. Daniels hit it on the head. The key is the council, because we've seen town managers get eaten alive by council. What's happened with this Southbridge First agenda, we appointed a Southbridge town manager for the first time in the history of the town. What's happened is we're learning together. We have a good team concept. It's moving forward. We've been moving mountains. We've been conquering problems that have fermented for years in the finance department. Because they did it this way for so long, made it right. I've served with Jack Jovan on a school committee, building committee, and council. He's the man for the job. I stand behind him, but I also understand that the honeymoon's almost over, and now we're going to have some real intricate parts of government and manager. He knows his role, we know our role. But the team concept that he has created with the council, and the council's created with him, has paramount to get things done.
We still got some more time.
I would say I think Jack's doing the best that he can with the skills that he has. He's not served in a position prior that was at this high level or that met this level of demand. And as others have alluded to up here, having political experience is not the same thing as having the experience to run the town. I would say the council in this part has failed. I think the council has left him in a boat with no oars. The council didn't put into his contract any accountability measures. The council didn't set up goals and objectives. So how is he supposed to build? How is he supposed to work on behalf of our community when those key accountability measures haven't been put in place? I think he's doing the best he can. I think he's made some tough decisions. He's made some really good decisions. And I think it was smart that bring in somebody for operations, which is something he knows that's not his strong suit. However, I think the council needs to make sure that they have the backbone to do, actually set accountability standards, make sure that he is meeting, as somebody who's being paid off the taxpayer's dollar, is actually meeting the levels and standards that we need him as a council and as a community to be doing.
I heard that the council, what you just said, had failed as far as setting goals and that type of thing. I mean, how would you change that, Jackie?
Well, it's clear whenever you hire a manager, you set goals and objectives. You say, hey, this has been the long term, what we want to see come out from Southbridge. This is what we want you to do as the manager of Southbridge at behest of the council. By council not doing that, by council not showing leadership, it passes the buck on to him, and he's the person who's supposed to be running the day-to-day operations, helping fulfill these goals and objectives.
We've used up our 5 minutes, but Scott,
gotta tell you again,
I'll give you about 15, 20 seconds.
I can't hold her youth and inexperience against her again. This town manager was thrown in the middle of a fire. Our overly qualified manager was an incompetent, the one with a lawyer and all the credentials. This gentleman is dropped in the middle of a storm.
And why'd you vote to rehire him over and over again if he was so incompetent, Councilor?
Excuse me, I'm speaking. I don't interrupt you. I think you should have a little
That's the
courtesy.
whole debate. That's the reason
So-
we're
But
having
the
here.
debate,
when I'm done, you can
it's
comment
okay
on it.
to interrupt as long as we can hear each
Right,
other.
I'm not going to
that's all.
interrupt her. I won't interrupt her. I'm a gentleman. But the thing is, when you have somebody dropped into a fire, goals and objectives are not the priority. Get the job done is the priority, especially when you almost lose your local aid because of some problems in the finance department. You got to know what's going on. And again, inexperienced, youthful.
I gave you a little extra time. I'm going to give Jackie a little extra.
Wow, there was a whole lot of political speak in that
Take
statement.
about 15 seconds.
So the facts are, when you don't provide guidelines, when you don't set goals and objectives as a council, you are derelict in your duty. End of story. This council did not do their job. They didn't set goals and objectives, and it's hard to measure the progress of somebody when you have nothing to measure them against.
I'll tell you, let's go another couple minutes on this if you wanted to.
Paperwork
think-
is a measurement.
I think-
Paperwork, instead of the job getting done? Come on, grow
I
up.
think that goals and objectives are important. Speaking as a vice principal and having evaluated teachers, I do understand that goals and objectives are definitely important. I think also, though, that it's important to note that he was given a goal and an objective, one goal and objective to start the process, which was to take care of the seriously overriding problems that were occurring in town that have been alluded to. I think that he has done well by that. I think that he understood that that's what needed to be done. I think that the council also understood that that was needed to be done and has backed off a little bit to give Jack some room and some time to get the process rolling. We're not against goals and objectives. I certainly am not, and I'm certainly planning on starting a goals and objectives situation in the coming year if I'm reelected. But I think, when there's a leak, you stop the leak first before you talk about fixing other parts of the house. You fix the leak first. I felt that we needed to fix the leak first, and I think that that's the direction that he was given to begin with.
Then you put that in the goals and objectives.
I think that we'll let that be the final word, unless you got one final word, and I'll give you one final word.
She doesn't
Thank
know
you.
what she's talking about.
Thank you.
Is that your final word, Steve?
I wasn't a part of the hiring process, but all I can tell you is what I've observed, and I think Jack's done a great job in trying to set this town back on course. Going forward, I would love to see him out and about in town, shaking hands and acting more as a mayor than even a town council. But I think he's doing a fantastic job, and I think that was the question. How is he doing? I think he's doing a fantastic job. Thank you.
Thank you. Maureen, thank you for putting up with me. And thank you for your discussion. I think that was very good and spirited for sure. Let's go to TC number 5, which is question number 5. Taxpayers have been seeing notable increases in taxes and other municipal costs in the last couple of years, and likely face more for the fire station, stormwater system, more roads, and school upgrades. Wow, the list just keeps on going. How can the town adequately fund necessary projects and still keep the bills affordable? We start with this with Scott Lazo. 2 minutes, Scott.
Stability comes through management and leadership. We have good leadership on the council. We have an excellent town manager. The things that we've been working on are roads. You want your roads fixed, they cost money. South Street, South Road, Ellis Road, Gulfwood Road, Main Street, the list goes on. This year, we have a new list. We continue to do that through that Chapter 70 money. We turn around, we end up in the town hall. We've been moving positions around to do it more cost effective. We've been wasting quite a bit of money in certain salary lines. We're getting the production. We are reorganizing. We also have to reorganize inspections. DPW is on a reorganization chart if we're elected. We are constantly trying to save money in the operations of the town, and the capital improvement has been bumped. The fire station is now a dilemma because of the bonding and what the price actually was and is going to be. So we have a lot of trouble ahead, and the thing that we have to do is work on it. We have a good team, and I think we have to continue to do the job we're doing.
And we can open this to a discussion. Maureen, set the timer for 5 minutes and discuss this amongst yourselves.
I think first off that we need to look at just where we do stand in terms of our tax levy. I took some time and I went to the Division of Local Services to find out exactly where is it that we are, because people say we're expensive, we're not, it's too much money, that sort of thing. So I went to the Division of Local Services and I found that in fiscal year 23, the single family tax rate was $4,512 for an individual home in Massachusetts, in Southbridge. Relative to the state, the entire state, 351 cities and towns, we're in the bottom 22% in terms of what we assess people that live in town. There are 80% roughly towns more that assess more than what we do. So we've been good watchdogs, I think, going back a long time for the tax dollar. The town manager's put in place a strong financial department, as I alluded to before, and we're well aware of what we need to watch. I think that we're cognizant of the fact that there are a lot of potential large expenses that are coming down the road, but I think also you need to understand, as Councilor Lazo had alluded to, that if you're going to ask for something to be done, then there's going to be a cost for it as well. The trick is in making sure that it's done efficiently, that it's done well the first time, and that you get the most bang for your buck. And I think that, for myself anyway, I plan on watching to make sure that we are getting the most bang for the buck, but I'm not afraid, and this may cost me some votes, but I'm not afraid to spend a few dollars for fixing this town hall, for instance, rather than letting it rot and fall apart, and then you need to do what I think it was Fitchburg had to do and build a $24 million building because their old town hall fell apart. That's the problem we ran into with the firehouse, where the building was allowed to fall apart, and now somehow or other we're going to have to build a firehouse. One way or another, it's got to get built. There's no plan B for that as far as that goes, because you can't rebuild on the spot there because of land constrictions, and the renovation cost was more than what the cost was for a new building to begin with when the first estimates came out. So as far as taxes go, I think that as a whole, the town council has been very, very careful about where the money is being spent, and I know that I will continue to watch that to make sure that we are careful with where it's being spent.
I would say that we need to be very cognizant of what our tax situation is. We may not have a high rate, but we have one of the highest mill rates in town. And if we move forward with economic development, we're going to find out that our real estate values are going to go up, and that will affect, and since real estate's essentially assessed on the mill rate, that means people's taxes are going to go up because of the mill rate. So we have to be real cognizant of what we're asking our folks to pay for and how much our taxes are. They got a double hit, one with the fire station last year, and then this year with the trash. So now people are paying a lot more in taxes because of their assessments. We also had, I believe there was an assessment done, and most people's house values have gone up, so their taxes are going up as well. So yes, we have to be very careful about our taxes. That doesn't mean we can't move forward. That means we have to be smart. We are a town that would qualify for many, many grants, and we do have a great grant writer in town. We've been getting a lot of grants. A lot of the money that a lot of the road projects you see in town are being funded through state and federal grants. So we need to continue to pursue grant money where we can get it. The fire station is an issue. One of the problems that you have, there is a cost in neglect, and we are facing that cost now with the fire station.
How old was that fire station that we're replacing?
It's over 100 years old.
How old?
Over 100 years
It
old.
was like the 1870s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jackie,
1870s.
100 years.
haven't heard from you on this one yet.
So we have to make the investments that we need to make, right? We're dealing with a situation where for a little bit now, the council didn't make the proper investments into our fire station, into our roads, into our infrastructure, and there comes a cost with that. As Mr. Kelly said, there's a cost to neglect, right? Now, the choice we have is, are we going to make those continued investments? Are we going to try to identify federal and state agencies to help find funding sources for these projects, or are we going to kick the can down the road? Now, I'm not going to kick the can down the road because it'll be my generation that has to deal with it. It will be, the next generation that has to deal with it. I don't think that's responsible. I think the responsible thing is to find those sources, and if you can't find those sources, but it's a needed fixture like our fire station was, you gotta pay the piper. You gotta do what you gotta do. And I'm not going to sit here and tell people it's going to be cheap, or that I'm going to lower your taxes by cutting spending, because that's just not realistic. That's not realistic. We live in the real world.
We've used up our 5 minutes. Final word, Jackie?
So my thought process is this: make the investments we need to make now so we don't put the burden into our next generation.
Scott?
I don't want anybody to make it sound like we have to reinvent the wheel. We have a person named Peg Dean. If nobody's noticed, in the past few years, she's been knocking it out of the park for the town of Southbridge. Yeah, we don't always agree, but we have a team that's built, and this team is moving it forward with Peg Dean, John LaFleche, Jack Jovan, and the town council. It's working very well.
Steve or John, do you have any other thing to add? Just a couple of seconds there.
I would just like to say, yeah, the Peg Dean has been doing a great job. And like I said earlier, a lot of the improvements you've seen in town are because of the grants that she's written. So yeah, we have to keep on working and getting the money that we can from the federal and state government, and we have to be real cognizant of where taxes are today.
Thank you for your thoughts on that, and I guess, John, you're all set too, right, on this?
I just want to make a comment on Mr. Kelly's talking about the mill rate. I understand what he's saying about the mill rate, and I agree what he's saying about the mill rate. However, the mill rate is set as a result of state-mandated formula, and ultimately, I don't think that people worry too much about what the mill rate is necessarily, as much as they worry about what the value of their house is and what the ultimate cost is going to be on a monthly or yearly basis. I think that in the long run, when you're paying thousands of dollars for taxes, no one's really worried about the mill rate. I think they're worried about the fact that they've got a lump sum coming out of their wallet. So that's all I have to say about that.
For the year.
That's right.
Okay, hey, thank you for all the input on that particular question. Put the names back in the hat, and we'll go to the next question that we have, which is TC number 6. Question number 6. What aspect of your personal background qualifies you to be a counselor, and how would you use them? I guess this is a question that each one of you, I'm going to give you just what's the big thing about you that qualifies you for this job? And each one of you is going to get a minute to answer this question, just 1 minute. And we'll start with Jackie Ryan.
Thank you. So I have worked in healthcare for a very long time. It's what I'm back in now. And one thing that I always consider important is the long-term health of the community. And after working in healthcare, you learn to realize that there's a whole lot that goes to somebody, to a community, than just, the economics. I think we need to take a really big holistic approach and look at everything, look at all our people, make sure that everybody has a chance to succeed, making sure everybody has an opportunity and access to the town hall to start a business. Those are, making sure there's those equal footings for everybody, and making sure we're able to deliver those results in an efficient yet compassionate way, I think is something that you only get from serving in healthcare. So I would say my background as a healthcare worker is vital to this community's health.
Thank you, Jackie. John Daniel, same question.
I was a vice principal for 14 years, and in that time, I can't tell you how many times I had heated students or heated parents that were in the office, and what I had to learn was to listen, and to listen to what the perception was about the problem. You need to see where the other, you don't need just to hear the words that the other person is saying, but you need to really grasp where that person stands with what the problem is from their perception, from their viewpoint. And I think that as a counselor, that's something that I was able to bring forward and through. When I'm talking to a constituent, I want to know not just what they're saying, but I want to know why they're saying it. Where is it that they're coming from? I think that makes it much easier to make decisions up here at the dais. You do what's best for the town. You do what's best for the student as the VP. You do what's best for the town as the counselor. And you do that based upon what the townsfolk are telling you they need.
John, thank you very much. Next person to answer the question would be, again with the same question, to Steve Kelly.
Thank you. I was a military officer for 20 years, and I think one of the things that I learned as a military officer is you are in charge. You may be giving orders, but you need to listen to everybody that has an impact, that has some input or some knowledge. One of the things a young officer learns quickly is that the first person you want to listen to is your master sergeant, okay? Because that person has the experience. So I think I've learned how to listen to people with different experience, with more expertise than I have, and try to listen to all sides of an issue before I make a decision. So I think that's the biggest thing I've learned over the years.
And Scott, you have a minute to answer the same question. What qualifies you as the best?
It's been a long road, and I've learned a lot over the years. Starting out as a class president and captain of the football team, moving into getting married and raising 5 children, understanding how to work within a family unit, then going on to being president of Papuana, chairman of a building committee, chairman of the school committee, then topping it off on a second tour as a council chairman. I served with a lot of the elders back in the day. And the one thing I've learned, you have the right to disagree, and you don't have to hate anybody. And always put the town first, and you'll sleep nights.
Thank you very much for your answers, too. This is a typical Gus Steves type question. I'm looking at this, and I wonder how I would answer this question. I think it's a thinking man's question for sure, and I like it. We've never asked anything quite like this before, and we'll see who gets to answer this question first. But this will be a discussion, because I think it's kind of a cool question. Question number TC7. This is a long-term thought question, purposely targeted past our lifespan. What's your vision? What's your vision of Southbridge in 2100, the year 2100, and how do we get there? Back to Scott Lazo.
I'll be running for re-election when it comes up.
So Scott, you will be here for that.
No, I have to say, I'm an optimist by nature. I think the town of Southbridge has already turned its corner People see it everywhere. People are coming into town and investing in Southbridge, something that hasn't been happening in past years. We have a better welcome wagon when you come in. We still have a ways to go. Gentleman on my left here, I sat down and talked with him about bylaws. We have bylaws that stop progress. This gentleman knows where they are. He's on general government. I want to team up with this guy. He's exciting. So for me, we're working to make this a metropolitan second to none. And I think by doing that, we have sewer, we have water, we have everything, fire, police, loaded with services and assets. We have a council with leadership, strength, a local town manager. We need the Southbridge First agenda to continue. Don't give our water away, charge for it. We have a water supply, they don't. We need to continue to put our town first and our people, and we will be that bright light on the hill. Thank you.
Can't you see the bumper sticker, Lazo for 2100? You know? I mean, how many people in the audience and how many people here are doing the math and saying, how old will I be then? You know, I don't know if we're going to make it, but it's an interesting question, and thanks, Gus, for the question. Why don't we spend 5 minutes to just kind of talk about your long-term vision for Southbridge? It doesn't necessarily have to be 2100, but it is kind of interesting to talk about. Anybody?
I'll go back to the future a bit. So, back in the 70s and 80s, this town was something else. It was the economic engine of southern Worcester County. It provided jobs to the region, and it had a booming downtown. I remember coming here as a Algonquin Regional High School football player, and we played a JV game against Southbridge High School. And we drove through the town, and I remember seeing this place. It was quite something. Shops, restaurants, I mean, retail. You know, there was just a lot. It looked like there was a lot to do here. That's the vision I have for the future. That's where I want it to be in 2100.
Anybody else?
I would really like to see this community be a really thriving, big family community. And the way you do that is by making the investments that are necessary into housing, into our infrastructure, into economic development. By doing that type of work, you're going to attract and keep the talent here that you want to keep. Now, you have to ask yourself at the end of the day, what type of community do we want to be? Do we want to be a community that's continuously getting older and older? Or do we want to be a community that has all age ranges and has a healthy young base that we can pass off the torch to and say, hey, look at the work we did, see what we did, now you can continue to build from that. I want that for, you know, at some point I want to have kids. I want to have something I can hand off to them. And right now, we're not making the investments that are necessary, in my mind, in order for me to feel like I can hand something off to them that's better than what I got.
2100. Where will we be? We have a bowling alley. Get a bowling alley back by that time. John?
If there's still bowling. I see a vibrant town where we have parks and recreation facilities that are being taken care of. I see a focus on the rail trail, the long promised rail trail that's finally going to start coming around and being modified. I see work around the river. I see using the river as a resource for our recreation as well. And it runs right through the center of town. There's no reason why we can't look to the river for revitalized energy. It was our energy source back in the 1800s. It can be an energy source for the people that live here in the 22nd century. I see tree-lined streets thanks to the Opacum Trust. I see multicultural celebrations on the Common and street festivals. I see us taking advantage of the fact that we have a very diverse community and that they want to share with us what their culture is. And there's no reason why we can't participate in that celebration with them and bring some life to town.
You know, we did get a number of citizens' questions that came in to us, and we asked a number of them. This is one that came through 3 separate people, and that's why I'm going to ask it right now. It's a citizen's question, and I'm going to ask this to Steve Kelly. What are your thoughts on having candidates running for council who still owe property taxes? That was a question that actually had been brought up. I hesitated about asking it, but because of the number of people who had mentioned it, we thought it would be pertinent to bring it up tonight. Steve Kelly.
Well, property taxes, I'm not, I would want to give whoever it was due process, okay? They may have a dispute about the property taxes. I don't know. So as long as, I mean, if they had been through through due process, and they still owe the property taxes and refuse to pay outright, well, then maybe there should be some kind of penalty for that that would prohibit them from running for town council. On the other hand, if for some reason, there are all sorts of things can happen to people. I mean, I see that every day as a public defender, where people fall on hard times. All right, people who serve on town council aren't immune to that. And there could be an issue where they fell on hard times and got behind on their taxes. As long as they're making an effort to repay it, I don't see that should be a penalty. But I think it really is going to depend on the circumstances and whether or not the person involved has received due process.
I would argue that I wouldn't go as far as Steve. I don't think anybody should ever be prevented unless they've committed an actual crime from running for office. I think it's a cornerstone to our society. However, I think it's also important to understand that if somebody's, chirping about fiscal responsibility, yet they're not fiscally responsible enough to pay the taxes that they owe the town, that the voters understand that and that they see the doublespeak, right? And they understand that, the people that are running our community are going to be responsible for the town's finances in the same way that they're responsible for their own personal finances. So I wouldn't bar anybody from serving or running, but I think it's important the voters understand who actually owes money to the town and who doesn't. I think that transparency is always important.
This question is still open for discussion if you'd like.
I think that, excuse me, I think that it needs to be remembered that we're all citizens of the community, and that as such, we need to be treated equally as citizens, not special treatment, not harsh treatment in terms of special treatment. We're all citizens, we all need to be treated equally. So alluding to what Mr. Kelly said about due process, I think that as long as there is a process in place and it is being followed, then I think that you let it run its course, and then ultimately, if all process has been followed and the person is just plain reluctant to pay taxes, then I think there's the potential for a penalty. But I think that the citizens, with that knowledge, should vote how they best feel they should vote in that given circumstance. Ultimately, as council members, we are responsible to the citizens. I'm hoping that enough citizens will vote for me on June 11th and elect me, re-elect me. That's their decision, and that's based upon what they think of me from tonight and what they think of me from my past 6 years of history. And if part of my history is something that might be onerous, then that's the way it is. They have to take that into account as well. As long as I'm being treated fairly and like any other citizen, then I'm okay.
Anywhere else?
Yeah, I don't think you should bar anybody from running for office. Understand when you run for office, you're running on your credentials, your past, who you are, where you come from. Some people, your ethnicity, how you comb your hair. I've seen people vote for people for the most awkward things. But the bottom line comes down to is there's a tax code, there's tax regulations. Somebody's behind on their taxes, and I'm in business. I've been behind in my taxes. But the thing is, when you got to take care of it before it hits the fan. You've inherited property that's in arrears. What do? You clean it up. Sometimes it takes time to clean it up. The town has payment plans. You work it out. If you don't, you lose your property. That's the tax code. We just voted $100,000 for tax title. Anybody that doesn't pay their taxes, the town goes after them to collect the taxes. If they don't pay it properly, then after they take the property. It's a very simple concept. As far as running for office, I think the people of Southbridge know who's who. And we campaign, we send brochures, we put signs out. You vote your conscience as a citizen. I want every citizen to go to the polls and say, I want you to lead us or not lead us. If you think that we're in a bad way right now and I'm not doing the job, there are alternatives. If you think I'm doing the job, put me back in there. Very simple. But I don't think you should buy anybody from running for office.
Let's go to the next question, which is number TC9. Another economic question. In what ways can the town better collaborate with other towns to reduce costs, provide better services, etc.? And how can we do that with the school district, or can we? This question is going to John Daniel.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Well, it's talking about collaborating with other towns. In what ways can the town better collaborate with other towns to reduce costs, provide services, etc.? Second part of the question is, how can we do that with the school district, or can we?
Okay. Well, first off, there are a couple of collaboratives that the town is already involved with on a basic level in terms of purchasing supplies for the schools, and the town side gets involved in that, and they purchase supplies for themselves as well. So you develop an economy of scale that way, and you get better bang for your dollar. In terms of other larger issues, though, I think what needs to happen is that you have to go out and solicit people with interest in a particular subject and invite them to be involved in a committee. A lot of people will get involved if they're asked. And I think some of the problem that we have, generally speaking, is that we're afraid to ask people to do something. And perhaps we'd find out that there's a lot that gets accomplished just by reaching out our hand and saying, would you come with me and help us out on a given subject? Then you go to the surrounding towns, the tri-community as it used to be called, for instance, Southbridge, Southbridge, and Charlton, and ask them if they would be willing to do the same thing with their citizens to address a particular problem or issue that's come up that would be better suited to be discussed on a regional basis rather than on an individual town basis. So I think really what it comes down to is just asking people that want to be involved, not putting people off, but saying, hey, come with us. We want to hear what you've got to say, and we want to enable you to go out and meet other people in other towns as well. We're going to give you a push forward to do what you need to do to help out your town.
Now, we can open that up for discussion as well, collaborating with other towns. Can the schools be involved as well?
I've already done that work when I was the WRTA representative for Southbridge. I worked with Sturbridge, in particular, Selectman Michael Supernaut, to help make sure we secured permanent fare-free busing in the region. That helped our region. That helped increase economic activity. It helped increase access to medical facilities for our most needy, including our elderly and our disabled people. So there are plenty of ways in which we could be doing a lot of regional work and working collaboratively to help, make sure that our area of the Commonwealth starts to get the economic and planning attention that is needed in the region. So Councilor Daniel made some really great points, and I think that we need people who have experience doing that regional work on the council.
Anybody else?
Sure. Currently we have, I think there are several cooperative agreements. I know that both the police and fire have mutual aid agreements with the surrounding towns. But we can also probably do a lot of other things. I mean, I think at some point receivership is going to end. I think we're seeing that with Holyoke now. There's a new commissioner. Russell Johnston is now the acting commissioner of DESE. I think there's some opportunity there to end receivership. They've already started the process in Holyoke. I think we've had some discussions in Southbridge as well. Well, when receivership ends, certainly we're going to have to build up our school committee again, they're going to have to relearn how to do budgeting, relearn how to hire a superintendent, and collaborating with a functioning, well-functioning school department certainly should be on the agenda there. You know, you've seen it. You've seen cooperation at the educational level throughout the state of Massachusetts with regional school districts. So, you know, the Tantascwa and Sturbridge, multiple towns offset the cost of a high school. They can collaborate on resources for the high school. That's something this town has decided not to do, and I'm not sure you want to do that because there is a cost to that, especially a town like Southbridge that has such a long history. You do, by losing your identity with the high school, there is a piece of the town that disappears with that. So that's certainly a discussion that the voters, I think, would have to be involved in. But those kind of collaborative efforts certainly have worked out for many districts, and that's not something that's. I'm not advocating that, by the way. I'm just throwing that out there as an example of how towns have collaborated.
Scott, did you want to add anything at all before we close this question?
Yeah. Being here for such a long time gave you the experience. Bay Path, regional agreement, multiple towns. Sturbridge intermunicipal sewer agreement. We take sewerage, they pay us, we make money. Charlton, water, intermunicipal water agreement with Charlton. You look at when we buy salt. A lot of times towns bulk buy salt together, although the salt goes to our salt barn. We have a kennel that we utilize, Oxford's kennel. Well, we're going to have our own kennel. We're going to build a kennel, but we're going to be neighborly and allow some dogs to come in from other communities that don't have a big enough kennel. You have to be neighborly with your neighbors, but you can never forget where you're from. And there's where the Southbridge First agenda comes in. There was a council not too long ago that gave up water rights. We pay Charlton money for our water. Somebody's going to have to explain that to me, but that's for a further date. You need counselors like myself with experience to step up to the plate and know these agreements, so when they come back again for a renewal, we don't sell out the house. We watch out for Southbridge interest first. Thank you.
And we used up our 5 minutes there, and really we've come almost to the end of the forum. It's 7:17 right now. We've got about 13 minutes left. I always ask this question at the end of the forums, because sometimes it's a question that Gus didn't think of, or I didn't think of, or somebody in the public didn't bring up, and you wanted to hear that tonight. Is there any question that you wish that we had asked you tonight? Is there any question that you wish that we had asked of maybe another candidate here? And what's that question, and what would your answer be? And we'll start with Jackie.
Well, thank you. I think one of the biggest things that I wish we had talked more about is what we're going to do to help support our school committee and our school system in the long term, making sure that we build a good working relationship with our school committee, understanding that they also come to the table from very different backgrounds. I'm very thankful to Ms. Shea for all the good work that she's done. And I'm thankful to the people who are willing to step up in general in that regard on the school committee, because being on the school committee is a even more thankless job, in my opinion, than being on the town council, because you have no power. So I appreciate all of them who do the good work and are doing so with very little recognition for the service that they do for our community. So thank you for everybody who's currently running and currently serving on the school committee, because without you, we wouldn't have a strong system to help fight for.
The same question, John Daniel. Is there any question that you wish had been asked tonight?
I agree with the sentiment about the schools being an issue that should be discussed tonight. I agree with former Councilor Ryan that we need to enable the school committee to get up to speed, to do the work that they need to do in order to get us out of receivership or to help get us out of receivership. But I think that what needs to be noted here, and this is my opinion, and this is my words, I think the state hung the town out to dry. I think they hung the school committee out to dry. In plain English, what is the part the school is going, what is the part the state is going to play in terms of helping us to get out of receivership? Because it's been, what, 8 years now? It's been 8 years now, and what has the state done other than send a lot of money and a lot of personnel of various administrative levels into the district? What was the hope? What was trying to be accomplished? What's the path? And I don't think that we've gotten that answer from the state yet. The town needs to be aware that there's a state-mandated funding mechanism, and the tax dollars are going to be needed and increased because, again, the state has hung out the towns to dry by mandating funding levels that are getting increasingly high, and in a town like Southbridge, what are we getting for it? What is coming down the road? And this is mandated funding. So people talk about the minimum budget or the foundation budget. It's going up next year, and it's the following year it's going to go up again, and that's guaranteed because it's in law based upon the algorithms, the formulas that the state has decided, which is related to the nature of our student population. There's no way around it. The funding is going to be needed.
John, thank you very much. Scott Lazo, same question. Was there a question that we could have asked tonight that you would have liked to have heard?
I'm going to jump on the bandwagon of schools because it gets talked about a lot. As chairman of the council, as I landed, I contacted Holyoke to sit down with their mayor, their receiver, school committee, their city council. We were talking together to join forces and file a class action suit against the state. Well, I got a phone call from the state saying, calm down, let's, things are in the workings and we need to stay calm and we're going to move forward. 3 weeks later, Holyoke's underperforming. Russell Johnson comes into Southbridge, calls us for a joint meeting. Russell Johnson is a different type of commissioner. The past two commissioners shouldn't have been commissioner. This gentleman, I know him. He wants Southbridge to succeed. I think our school committee wants us to succeed. And certainly this town council is more unified now than ever before to get behind that school committee and do it together. The receiver, we need to deal with the receiver because of the design of the receivership. Every time there's a little pushback, there's a shutdown. In government, you can't shut down. If we had a superintendent and the little pushback, she doesn't get to quit. She has to reason with the school committee. This working together with the receiver and the school committee is paramount. We need our subcommittees to be formed at school committee level. We need to understand what budget is. We can never afford the design of the school system with the management team they have now with the money that they've appropriated. We know that and they know that. We have a rough road ahead to restructure as we transform. I'm going to make a prediction. We're going to be out underperforming within the next year. But
And we'll leave it at that because our
call me on
time.
it, but I'm going to tell you this. The right school committee members need to work together. And this council, I can guarantee you, if I'm elected, I'm going to have their back on every corner because we need our schools back. It all is part of the fabric of our community.
And Maureen, could you set the clock for 2 minutes? Because I'd like Steve Kelly to answer the same question. And the question is, was there another question that you wanted us to ask that was left out? Or do you want to jump on the bandwagon with what's going on up here?
Well, I'm going to jump on the bandwagon, believe it or not. So, no, it's, I would have liked to have been asked about the schools. And certainly receivership and what we're going to do about getting us out of receivership. And I think there's been a lot of work done in the background here already. We had our referendum last year when the town overwhelmingly voted against receivership. I think that sent us a strong message, and it gave the council some authority on the issue. It's interesting, but in 2021, the University of Virginia completed a study of 14 states that have receivership or something similar to what we have here in Massachusetts. They concluded that in not one single instance did they find that any of the school systems improved under state control. Not one. Receivership is an absolute failure. It disenfranchises our voters because they no longer have a say in what happens in their schools. And when you get disenfranchised, you lose your stakehold. You tend to lose your stakehold in it. You stop caring about it. So we need to get our schools back, and we need to keep up the pressure on the state. And I do believe that Russell Johnston is opening an opportunity for us here because he is a different person, and in a different gubernatorial administration as well. So I think we just need to keep the pressure on the state. We need to work with the other communities, Holyoke and Lawrence, and have a concerted effort with them to end this failed discriminatory policy. Thank you.
You know, and I can see you raise your hand on this, and you know what? I don't blame you because that's got to be the biggest issue. And when you started off the forum tonight, everybody said education. People mentioned receivership.
Rich,
15 seconds.
One of the optimistic things that's happening in Southbridge right now, I've been in politics for 39 years, off and on. Look how many people are running for school committee. To have no power, to go to a meeting and not be appreciated by a receiver, I think the receiver needs to change, and I know that this school committee, whomever gets elected, people are interested in changing, interested in making our school district come home. We had the ballot vote, but look at how many people are going to be running for school committee. That's a great signal and a tribute to our school district.
I said 15 seconds, and I totally lost. But no, it's an important issue, obviously, and on everyone's mind here. And you know what? I have a feeling that issue is going to come up during the school committee debate or the school committee forum, which is coming up in about 5 minutes. I just want to give you closing statements right now. A minute each, and Maureen, you can set that for a minute for each one. I got to stick to the time because we got to be out of here by 7:30. And we'll start with our closing statements for 1 minute from Scott Lazo.
For the people that don't know who I am, I'm a gentleman that loves his community. I think what we have to do is work as a team. I've grown up in Southbridge, raised my family, I run multiple businesses. I have dilemmas, I have successes, and we continue to work on them. Something that's happening at the council level. I'm very optimistic on the lineup of councilors or non-council that are running. We can get that team concept continues to work. But for myself, I can say, you have the right to disagree in government. You can have a great floor fight. You can go at it, but Edgar McCann's quote was, you have the right to disagree and you don't have to hate anybody. Go back to work the next day. I ask each and every one of you, if you can find it in your heart to provide leadership to this council and strength, vote for Scott Lazo. I'm asking you for your vote on June 11th. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Scott, and thank you for all your answers and participation tonight. Steve Kelly, you're next up for 1 minute closing statements.
Thank you. I'm running for town council because I love this town. I only moved here in 2015, so I've only been here 9 years, but I've seen what this town is, and I've seen a vision of what it can be. We have great things in this town. We have great people. We have great diversity. We have a lot to build on here. But we have to do the work in order to do it. And in order to do the work, we have to first of all get rid of school receivership. That's got to be a priority, #1 priority, because nobody wants to come here and build a business when the schools are in receivership. Nobody wants to invest in a community where schools are in receivership and controlled by the state. So we need to do that, and we need to find ways to encourage business in town. That may mean a code overview. What are we doing that disincentivizes business, and rework the code so that they can thrive in this town. I'm Steve Kelly, and I'm asking for your vote on June 11th. Thank you.
And thank you, Steve. We'll go to John Daniel
Okay.
for your closing statements. 1 minute.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone who put this together, my fellow council candidates. Concerns for our less fortunate citizens, concerns over roads, building conditions, parks and recreation facilities, wastewater treatment, freshwater supply, and of course our schools and the state receivership, as well as other issues brought up tonight, are examples of topics that have come across the council dais and are spoken of throughout town. Southbridge is a wonderful town, and its citizens are second to none. While there can sometimes be disagreement on topics, I firmly believe that everyone has the best interest of the town at heart. For the last 6 years, you, the citizens, have given me your trust to take care of the town and its needs. I hope I have treated that trust with respect and gratitude, and the gratitude that it deserves. I now humbly ask you for your vote so that I may continue to serve you in the amazing town Southbridge is. Thank you, and thank you for your vote.
And finally, closing statements from Jackie Ryan, and you have a minute.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you again, everybody, for putting on this wonderful forum. Thank you at home for watching. Thank you to everybody here for coming out and listening to everybody. This debate is necessary. This fight over the issues is necessary. Look, I'm running for council, and I ask for your vote on June 11th because I want to help everybody here in Southbridge. I want to lift all boats, and that means making sure we make proper investments into our roads, our infrastructure, and into housing. Now, we have many issues here in town, including the big one that's been over our heads for the last 8 years, which is our school system. I will work hand in hand with our school committee, which is why I have the backing of the majority of the school committee and the majority of the people running the school committee, because I have that experience of working and delivering results for the Southbridge Public School District. I did so as chair, and I will do so again if I'm lucky enough to serve as counselor for this community again. My name is Jackie Ryan, and I ask for your vote on June 11th to help make Southbridge a community that our generation, our next generation, and the generation after that want to stay, live in, and work in.
We have a number of people here, and I know a number of people watch this show. I've been told that this is one of the highest rated programs on Southbridge Cable. I don't know if I believe that or not, but it is. It actually is. According to Charlie out back, he said, people watch this. And, you know, we're going to play this ad nauseum between now and when the election takes place on June 11th. Thank you. If you're at home right now and you're watching live, hang around. We're going to take about a 5-minute break and have the school committee come in for the same forum for another fun-filled hour or so. And thank you, Scott, Steve, Jackie, and John. Sounds like a rock group. Thank you very much for coming and all of your answers. And thank you, everybody here as well. We'll take a 5-minute break, and we'll be back.
Good job. Good job. Good job.
Well, good evening. My name's Rich Merrill. I'm going to be taking care of you again this evening, but this time from the school committee perspective. We've got 4 candidates who are running for school committee. Kind of a nice problem to have because we have 3 positions open, so we're going to have a contest here tonight on a committee that doesn't have a whole lot of power and is have to deal with receivership. We'll talk about that more as we go along, but everybody out there knows for the last, what's it been, 8 years since the school has actually been taken over by the state and run by the state? It must be a frustrating committee to belong to when you actually are part of a school committee that doesn't have a whole lot of say. And some of these people here want to change that, and they want to see if we can get Southbridge back control of the school. That's what this whole debate, or not debate, it's actually going to be a forum, school committee forum's about. We're going to talk about the schools. We're going to have a few questions that were written by Gus Steves from the Southbridge News. And Maureen, I know that you're going to handle the timekeeping as well. Maureen Doyle, and my name again is Rich Merrill. I'll be your moderator tonight. We just did an hour and a half with the town council. we'll do at least an hour here, and we'll see. We have up to an hour and a half if it takes that long. Got a bunch of questions here. We'll get started. But first, let's talk about some of the rules that we have. We're going to start with opening statements. I've got a hat here that I'm going to be pulling names out. You're going to be asked random questions on the opening statements. You're going to have up to 2 minutes to actually speak about what it is that you want to do on the school committee. I'm going to allow up to 3 minutes, actually. We had talked about that. You have up to 3 minutes as for your introductory speech. And just tell people what you're all about. Then from there, we'll ask some questions. And we'll start from left to right and introduce the candidates right now. Stephanie Rivers is on the far left, our far left. Martina Shea, right next to her. You got Maria Torres. And the fourth candidate would be Brittany Davison. So we got 4 people running for 3 positions, and it'll be up to you to decide on June 11th. Gus, 2 positions. I'm sorry. I misspoke. I'm still back with the school committee. I apologize. It's 2 positions. So now we're going to eliminate 2 people on June 11th. How much does your vote matter now? A whole lot. I just found out from the people down at the town clerk's office that 1,500 people from Southbridge have actually asked ballots to be sent to them. 1,500. That's a powerful number of people voting. And then, of course, on Election Day on June 11th, you can just come into the town hall and vote. To the center down on Chestnut Street to vote down there. And you've got from 8 o'clock in the morning until
8 at night.
8 o'clock at night. Correct, Gus?
7
Is
to
it 7?
7 to 8.
We actually open up at 7.
7.
Okay. It's been a long night already.
day.
It's going to get longer, though, and we'll take care of this now. So, Stephanie, we're going to start with you with the opening statements as far as your introductory speech. Take up 3 minutes. Set the timer.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Rivers, and I've been a longtime resident in Southbridge since 1974. I grew up in Southbridge. I've attended the Southbridge public school system. I've also bought a home in Southbridge, so I'm a homeowner. I've raised my family in Southbridge. Both my children have gone through the Southbridge public school system. I'm invested in this town. I've dabbled in and out of politics, where I've served on general government, as well as advocated for residents in this town for services needed after the June 1st tornado, so I did a lot of volunteer work. I'm also invested in the school system as well as a parent and also as an aunt. I have 2, a niece and nephew currently in the school system. They're both juniors, and so I have a really invested interest in the school system. I come from an IT background, and being a technical person, I ask the right questions to investigate and resolve issues, from gathering information to understanding the issue to effectively listening to the stakeholders and knowing what questions to ask in regards to that. I think I would bring a valuable skill set to the table if elected for a school committee in being able to work to bring the school system back to Southbridge, and collaborating with the school committee as well as the town council and other stakeholders within the community, including students, parents, teachers, and residents of the community. So I hope on June 11th you will come out and cast your vote for me to put me on school committee, and I will do my best to ensure that your interest is being represented on the school committee. Thank you.
And thank you, Stephanie. We'll go over to Martina now, Martina Shea, who is the incumbent on the school committee, looking for re-election. You have up to 3 minutes. By the way, our timer here, just so you know, if you're new to the game, here we have a green light, which means you can start talking. The yellow light, when that's on, you have about 15 seconds before the time limit expires, and the red light will tell you when it expires at 3 minutes. Go ahead, Martina.
Good evening. I want to particularly thank Maureen Doyle and Rich Merrill for having us tonight, for arranging for this space to be available to us, the cable company for bringing it to all of our citizens, The school committee right now, if you just watch the one for the debate for the town council, is the main issue in town. It is time that we end receivership. I am a town resident. I still live in the same house that I've lived in all my life, except for a very short stint when I tried living in a big city, Washington, D.C., and I didn't like it. I like Southbridge. I've worked in the schools. I make no bones about the fact that when I was teaching, I was president of the teachers union because I value our staff and our students so much. I've worked on the school committee under receivership, and as Rich said, we have no power, and every time I say that, the whole committee yells at me, but we have no power. We have, under Jackie Ryan's leadership, she tried the strong method of dealing with receivership. Under Andrew Murch's leadership, he tried the strong method. Right now, I've been accused of being too nice by doing the sweeter, softer method, and none of them have worked. We need to control our own school. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria, Martina, for your opening comments, and you have 3 minutes as well, Maria Torres. 3 minutes for your opening comments at the timer.
Good evening. I just wanted to say, thank you to Rich and Maureen and also Gus for organizing this forum this evening. My name is Maria Torres, and I'm running for school committee. A little bit about myself is I am a resident here of Southbridge as of 3 years. I purchased a home here, decided to bring my family and raise my children here in town. So, I am a proud parent that has children that attend different schools in this district, and, I ran for town council last year, and one of my biggest goals last year was also to focus on our schools, so that's why I'm here today, because I'm continuing to move forward to my goal, and also focus on the future of our education of our children and our future leaders. A little bit about myself as well is, other than being a parent, I serve my community. I am on the EHS subcommittee as well. I serve, focusing on education and our health here in town. So, I also do have background in as being a permanent floating substitute teacher when I was going to college to study engineering. So in my heart, granted, I've always appreciated what teachers do as well, and again, focused on the future education of our children and our grandchildren moving forward. Today, I just, wanted to introduce myself to all the voters out there and appreciate all the support, as well as, your vote for June 11th, and to just give me an opportunity as I will continue to serve our community, support our school committee, keep that great connection with our town council, and work with the receiver at the moment until, we keep pushing forward to bring our schools back. And I thank you for tuning in today, and good luck to all the candidates here today going for school committee.
Thank you very much, Maria. Thank you for your opening comments. Brittany, the same to you. You have about 3 minutes, if you'd like, and just your opening comments at this point.
So, good evening. First, I want to thank those who put together this forum, allowing myself and the other candidates to be here to share our thoughts on the issues. And I also want to thank everyone who is here tonight in the audience to support us. For those who don't know me, my name is Brittany Garso Davison, and I was born and raised in Southbridge. And I've been through the school system, and I have seen some of the issues that our schools are currently dealing with firsthand. Throughout my career, I've had multiple roles, but they've always been in helping others, and that's what drives me. It's what I love to do. My current role is as a social worker with UMass Harrington, working with individuals who have mental health and substance use disorders. In this role, I've been fortunate enough to work with individuals on an individual level, one-on-one, and also within the community. I have a seat on the town manager's substance use task force and the steering committee that work with multiple other organizations coming together to help improve our community. In all my roles, I've collaborated with members who bring different experiences and knowledge to the table. I've been involved in these teams where communication, collaboration, and advocacy were key in making a difference. Coming into this role with fresh eyes and a new perspective, and I believe my skills as a social worker will help me be an advocate for the community to bridge the gap and build trust to foster a much-needed change in the school. Thank you.
And thank you, Brittany, too, for your comments as well. We do have some people in the audience here. If you feel like applauding, that's okay, as long as we don't get out of hand. But thank you very much, all four of you, for running. It's, I think, a thankless job, but it would be a very thankful job if you're able to accommodate and do something about the receivership. The town council was here earlier, as you know, and they each mentioned the receivership and ending it at the high school as their #1 or #2 issue. I have to think if I go around right now, and I will, Stephanie, #1 issue at the school.
Having the building, from my perspective and what took place in January into February with the students protesting because of what took place with the teachers being walked out, and the fact that the building isn't, for the students, a safe environment. That's one of the key issues.
Okay, and I just want to go down and get from each
that
person
I saw.
just a quick response on this particular issue. Martina, what's the #1 issue that you think, as far as the school's concerned?
Receivership and working with the state to get us out of receivership.
Okay, Maria?
Receivership as well, and also preparing for what's up to come once we know.
And Brittany?
I have to agree with both Martina and Maria that getting us out of receivership is the #1 issue.
Now, the big question is, and we're going to talk about this for about 5 minutes and we'll time it, how are we going to end receivership? How are we going to end it from a schools committee perspective? Do you have any ideas? And let's just open the floor up for 5 minutes, and we'll time this to make sure it doesn't go too long. But it is the biggest issue that the high school and the middle school is facing right now, receivership. How are you going to end it? Any ideas?
#1, this is more than a 5-minute issue. I hate to say this. I carry this document around with me a lot. It's the Department of Ed's response to restoring Southbridge to ownership of our school district. If you had asked me this question last year, I would have said there was no way out. With a new governor, with a new lieutenant governor, with a new secretary of education, and a new acting commissioner, they have seen and heard us. And they have this program. I understand that people are saying it's very vague, and it is, but for the first time, we have something that says we can get out of receivership if we do A, B, and C, because there was no A, no B, no C, no guidelines, no if you do this, this, and this, you can get out. This right now is our hope.
Does anybody else agree that we are closer to getting out of receivership than we were a year ago?
I think, with the new plan that Martina is bringing up, it is a step in the right direction because it outlines communication and collaboration with the receiver, which is key in getting us out of receivership. And that's something that hasn't currently been happening at all, kind of on both ends there. So it does give, the school committee going forward guidelines on how to get us out of receivership and how to communicate and collaborate with the receiver and the town council, such as like holding meetings, consistent meetings where people need to be present and share those ideas.
Anybody else?
Well, Martina decided to talk about the document expectations for Southbridge School Committee capacity building. It's a rough draft. It needs more definition, it needs more content, it needs more specifics. So the receivership has been in place for 8 years, but has not made any substantial gains or provided adequate, valuable, and detailed information to bring the school system out of receivership and return the school system to the school committee. I believe I can assist with returning the school system to the school committee by working together as a team and with the current receiver to address the key issues and provide solutions that will bring the school system back to the school committee. So more conversations are key in the beginning to transition the school system out of receivership. Also, specific and detailed short-term and long-term goals are necessary from both the receiver and the school committee to work together for transparency and to build trust with one another in providing a transition out of receivership. This includes the receiver taking an active role in being more available at all school committee meetings, because in a sense, the receiver is the mentor. So providing that report at school committee meetings would be valuable information for both the school committee in order to learn about all of the different key areas for improvement, and also to learn more about the budget, the policy, transportation, maintenance and facilities, and curriculum, and any other issues that are ongoing with the school committee.
Stephanie, do you think you'll be successful, or everybody else in the committee successful, to get the receiver to actually come and listen to the school committee?
I believe with hard work and collaboration and continual documentation and continual requests for information and building that bridge for collaboration is key in order to have a successful turnaround for the school system to be returned to the school committee. Is it going to be easy? No. It's going to be a lot of hard work, but I've never turned away from hard work before. It was how I was raised. My dad taught me, whatever you tackle, make sure you do it well, and I'm pretty good at that.
Martina, you mentioned this is not a 5-minute issue. Obviously it's not, and we're almost close to 5 minutes. We're going to let it go a little longer because this is the #1 issue, and it had to be brought up to the forefront. But Maria, if you have any ideas, or Brittany, you can share them now, and feel free to talk amongst yourselves on this too.
So the DESI program is a great program. It's our starting tool to move forward on what we need to do with the receivership. And again, just utilizing those stepping stones that we have now to move forward on the next step. As well as having the support of the state as well, and a turnaround plan. So we just, got to continue moving forward, using the tools that we have now, learning and being open to creating some subcommittees, getting dedicated people that will, continue to move forward and getting the receivership out and bringing back our schools.
And to Maria's point, it's essential to have subcommittees brought back to discuss the issues at subcommittee level. And the issues being addressed at subcommittee level takes it off the plate of the school committee. So that way the issues are discussed at subcommittee level, they're voted on, they're recommended to be brought back to the school committee level to be discussed and then voted on as agenda items. And this then frees up the school committee's time so that they won't have to spend their school committee meeting discussing those issues which can take place in the subcommittee level. So it's essential to have those subcommittees brought back.
Brittany, does that all make sense to you as far as how to end this receivership?
It does, and it is from my understanding that the receiver had a hand in creating the DESI document, so it does sound like he is hopeful in trying to build that trust and kind of work with the school committee in getting us out of receivership. And I agree with Maria and Stephanie in, regaining, getting the subcommittees back in. I also think it's important to try to get back student representative on the school committee, again, to have that student voice. We want to make sure, because we are elected officials, that we are working with the community and hearing their voice and understanding, what they want out of the school committee and what their concerns are. And
How
making
long's
sure
the
that we're
school
bringing
been
that.
under receivership?
8 years.
8 years. That's something that 8 years has gone by so fast, but if you're in that school, I have to feel it's dragging as well.
And the funny thing is, Rich, that the state law that DESI goes by states that the improvement plan will be an improvement plan that's a rapidly improvement plan. So rapidly is used in the wording in the state law. However, this school system has been in receivership for 8 years, so that word rapidly is actually ineffective.
I thought Stephen Kelly was was very interesting when he said that no school in receivership anywhere in the country has succeeded. I think that the state just thought they could snap their fingers and we would be perfect.
And my other question is what is the current school committee relationship with the receiver? Is it frosty? Is it good? Are we speaking?
There isn't a good one. There isn't a lot of communication and collaboration right now, which is why I think the DESI plan was voted in by the current school committee to start fostering that change and help start the process of communication and collaboration to get us out of receivership. And again, despite the fact that the school committee can't make changes to certain things, that doesn't mean that there is no power. Again, we are elected officials from the community, so there is power in advocating, and that's what we need to do going forward.
You got a couple other school systems in the state that are under receivership. Who are they?
Holyoke and
and
Lawrence.
Holyoke and
Lawrence.
Lawrence. Everybody knew that answer to that question. How are they doing? How are they getting out of receivership? What are they doing that's different? Are they further along than we
Check
are?
their MCAS scores.
Well, Holyoke has a receiver that's invested in their school system and with the school committee to work with them to transition them out of receivership. They also have a mayor that wasn't afraid to push back on DESI and on the former commissioner,
So
Jeff
you're saying the
Riley.
mayor was instrumental in moving
He was
things
very
along. Are
instrumental.
you saying that the town manager should be instrumental, or it's more of
No.
something the school committee should be
Their
doing?
Everyone in the
mayor
town.
is chairman of the school committee, so it's a very different structure.
And Holyoke actually took the first steps to petition the commissioner to transition out of receivership. And what took place after that was that commissioner at the time, Commissioner Riley, came back not with a yes, not with a no, but we need to have more conversations. That then sparked the mayor to make his statement to the press where he believed that not only did DESI not know what they were doing, but Boston as well did not know what they were doing. And when he did that, then there was a commotion on the Boston level, and people came out from Boston and started having conversations with Holyoke. And the end result now is Holyoke is in transition to end receivership for the Holyoke school system.
Holyoke
Lawrence-
is in transition. I mean,
They're on their
that's the
way.
word I've heard on the street, but is it really true?
Transitioning out of receivership is the next
Tradition
phase.
is an interesting word when
Yeah.
used by the government.
Okay.
But
But
those
it's
school committees
part of
have
the phase of leaving receivership, so it has to be included.
But those school committees have also been running like a school committee,
Right.
and having subcommittees and doing the things that they should have been doing,
Right.
even though they're under receivership,
Right.
which is something that we have not been doing.
And you think you can do that, Brittany?
I do.
You could.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think with this new plan, again, it's starting that process, and getting the right people elected is going to help us, again, start that process, foster communication and collaboration, getting the subcommittees back to get us out of receivership, and that's what we need.
Yeah. How did we get in this position to begin with? I think we all know. How do we get out? We don't have any goals. We don't have any standards. We don't have anything to follow. My understanding is we don't know how to get out.
Well, that's why we have the new DESI plan that was voted in, and that gives us a
And
guideline.
that will be the linchpin or the guideline that we would be using in order to do so.
Correct.
Hopefully, we will use it very strongly.
I don't believe it would be the definitive guideline because, again, it is not specific and it needs more context. It's more of a rough draft at this point, so more conversations definitely need to be had for this document in order for it to actually work and do what it was intended to do. So definitely going back to the table with this document and requesting more specific guidelines are needed with timeframes, with short-term and long-term goals for it to be more effective.
The whole night could be spent on this, Martina. When you said it wasn't a 5-minute issue, we've made it about a 12-minute issue, or what is it, 8:04 right now? It's about a 20-minute issue.
I think this group could go for the full hour on this one topic.
I think we could, and maybe we'd be doing it a disservice if we did, but wouldn't it be nice if spending an hour, we actually then could say, we're going to get out of this, and hopefully one of you or two of you that get elected
Will
will
be
be
two.
able to be the linchpins that'll actually move it along. But thank you. That was a really good discussion, and thank you. I think there's a lot of talk on this, as there was on the town council as well. A good portion of that, where more it seems that the town council is now looking at this a lot more than they did even a year ago, because they know everybody's got to get involved. And part of that would be voting for the proper people to get in. I want to take one of Gus Steve's questions right here, and let's take a look at SC-2, School Committee 2 question. Events at the school system, especially the high school, have been fairly contentious lately. What's your view of what's happening there, and how would you fix it? And what is happening there for the people that don't know, although I think most people do. I pulled Maria Torres' name out of the hat. We'll give you 2 minutes to answer this question, then we're going to have a 5-minute discussion on this particular issue. Martina is going to say, well, this isn't a 5-minute issue. We need another 20 minutes.
We might do this one in 5.
We'll do this in 5.
We'll give it a try.
Maria, 2 minutes.
So basically, just like communication, you know, just having someone that's going to make the outreach to the parents and make sure that, you know, any issues that are happening, direct or indirect, in our society with our public schools, we just need to make sure that we communicate and that everyone's on the same page with the admin and the teachers, and making sure that they are in contact with the parents. Also, too, collecting suggestions or surveying the parents in different schools. I do get surveys for West Street Elementary. I feel that that was great to get feedback because, again, we don't know what's going on in the households, and we need to show more support of what, you know, what the parents are in need as far as, you know, getting the children to school. Basically just being an advocate for not only just the teachers, but also for the parents, and finding out, you know, what it is that is missing. There's a link that's missing, and, you know, if I were to get on the school committee, I would definitely try to continue building that bridge between the school committee and town council as well on, you know, figuring out, you know, what these events and how we can fix them.
So you've got the question, you've got Maria's answer. We should take about 5 minutes to discuss this amongst ourselves. Anybody want to add to that or add their own opinion as well?
Yeah, so to follow up with what Maria was saying, a lot of the issue too is that there's no trust between the receiver and the community. So again, we need to bring back the community voice, especially with like the turnaround plan and things like that, is getting back the stakeholder group, which is comprised of individuals from the community coming together and giving their voice to talk about the issues like Maria is saying, like what the families and the people of the town are also dealing with that affects children in the school. It's not just a one issue type of thing. There's many issues that affect children in school and that can impact their education. So we need to make sure that we're, again, working together as a community to address these issues.
One of the overriding issues this year has been at the high school and the issue of students walking out when 2 teachers were summarily walked out. Apparently, as far as I understand it, they gave their notice, and in a business sense, you have people leave right away. In a social service, which is what we are, you work together with them, you work together with the people they serve so that the transition is smooth. It was not smooth. This all started, and I'm going to do a Scott Lazo. This all started in 1993 with Ed Reform. That's when they began to take the power away from local school districts. The local school districts used to have power to hire and fire beyond the superintendent level. The superintendent now is the one and only person who hires and fires, and that takes away a lot of power from everyone.
Well, the school committee certainly has a say in that matter. They don't have the final say, is what you're saying?
We have right now we have final say about nothing.
Right now, but
if we
assuming
were a regular school committee, we could discipline or fire or hire a new superintendent. That would be our governance power. But since we don't have that, if you're disciplining and controlling the superintendent and having him commit to your policies, then that filters through the district. Right now, all that's filtering through the district is one person.
Of course,
And
this question
this is a
really deals with some of
democracy.
this question really deals with some of the, well, you mentioned the teachers that gave their notice and then were summarily just walked out of the building. If you give your notice in a business, they usually will say today would be your last day. But how did they do it? Stephanie, you probably know. Maria?
So ironically...
How did they do it at the high school?
So ironically, when the two teachers provided their resignation, they were under the impression they would be able to work out their resignation, which is basically a 2-week notice. However, that didn't happen. And at the Boston level, when Commissioner Riley gave his notice, he was able to carry out that notice to the last day, which was, I believe, on that Friday, March 14th. So he was allowed to carry out his resignation. However, the two teachers at Southbridge High were not. And ironic, and it's also wrong. And that catapulted the students into taking action, which was a long time coming, because the students shouldn't have to take action. It should have been the school committee, and it should have been the leadership that took action, and took action long before this year, because again, this receivership has been in place since 2016. The state came in 2015 and decided for us that we needed to have state control. And one of the main reasons was because we had a revolving door of leadership. Well, at the state level, they also have a revolving door of leadership. So we need to take our school system back. It's time. The receivership needs to go. And it's time for us to take action and show leadership at the school committee level.
Part of Gus's question did say, what is your view as what's happening there? I think we all know that. But how would you fix it? Maria? Brittany? Martina? How would you fix
I'm sorry,
this?
what was the question?
Well, what happened there with the school committee? How does the school committee fix it if they don't have the power?
Well, we would have to, find a good way to have that collaboration and good communication with admin, our superintendents, and also listen to the teachers. We want to keep our teachers. We want, when I was a student as well at one point in my life, and the effect of these teachers that they give to these students is major. I still remember my teachers and mentors till this day. So we got to look at it in the big picture of, where are our teachers that start teaching at a young age and retire in the same seat? That's one of my goals on hoping to see if we can lower the turnaround on our teachers.
Any final words on that issue? I think we've used up our 5 minutes and then some on that particular answer. We have school committee question number 4. What's your take on the Thrive Act, which actually has 2 versions now? The proposed ballot question seeks to end the MCAS graduation requirement, but proposed legislation would also require receiverships to end in 1 year. Now, Gus, when you say this is a potential or proposed ballot question, is that indeed going to show up on a state ballot?
How can we answer that?
So it,
Oh, I can answer that one. I got hours on that one.
It's down the road, though.
so it is something that is in the works.
It's in the
So I still think it's an interesting question, though, because you're talking about end the MCAS graduation requirement, which apparently has support down in Boston, but we don't have any question coming up yet. And the proposed legislation also requires receiverships end in 1 year?
I can't wait to put the sign on my front lawn if it gets on the ballot. MCAS, this will not end MCAS. This will change MCAS from being the real deciding factor as to whether your children graduate or not. I have a friend who has a nephew who is autistic. He's very bright, he does wonderful things, but he's never going to pass that test. Is denying him a diploma on the basis of one test a fair and real thing that education should do to this child? Also, ending receivership, if that goes through, then we're going to do everything we possibly can between now and that date to be ready to take back our schools.
And it's
and-
just a question of how
and to the
far along it
second
is.
part-
Stephanie, you have any information on
To
that?
the second part of the question you asked about ending receivership, are you talking about the Thrive Act that's making its way through the House currently?
Unfortunately, I don't know.
I
Yes.
think
And I'm
you
glad
need
I
to be
didn't
a
get
little
this
more
question.
specific in what you're asking.
Yes, that's
So the Thrive Act is currently in the House of Representatives at the state level. So it still has not become a law yet. It's still making its way through the House. I would like for it to become a law, absolutely, because it would actually be a bonus and it would help the school committee gain their power back of,
Well, that's exactly what it sounds like.
And have their
in
voice
Quebec.
come back.
Could
And-
actually happen.
right, and we would be ready if I was elected, if that was the case, and it did become a law. So I'm all for it, I support it.
I've got another question here. Question number 5 of the school committee. How can the district effectively handle school safety issues, and what do you think is driving them? I'm going to pull a name out of the hat to start to answer this question for a couple of minutes. Stephanie
Of
Rivers.
course, I'm the one who's speak first. So school safety issues, are we talking about the safety of the building? I would think that would be what we're talking about. So in handling school safety issues, one way to address that is to delve into it head on and find out what's going on at the high school level, at the middle school level that's causing that building to be unsafe, first of all. So we don't know everything that's going on, we need more information. In the receiver's take on trying to ensure that the building is safe, he went and hired 20 administrators. We still don't know to this date what the context of those roles of those administrators are. We got maybe a little bit of information from them at the EHS subcommittee a few weeks ago as far as what some of those administrators do. So I would like more context on the roles of the administrators. I would also like to have more meetings with the stakeholders in the schools buildings themselves. That includes students, that includes teachers, that includes leadership, to find out exactly what's going on. I don't want to see any more weapons going into the schools, so I'd actually love to have law enforcement be engaged. Do we need a satellite office for the police station up at the school system? That's one option we can definitely talk about and have discussions on. And I think right now the police department is doing an excellent job in their role as ensuring that the schools are safe, especially after the last occurrence that we saw this year. So I am appreciative of the fact that we do have a full-service police station, but we do need to have our schools safer for the kids. We need to be able to ensure that our students and our teachers feel safe every day when they go into that building so that they can teach and they can learn.
I want to get somebody else in here. Brittany and Maria?
Sure, so I think Stephanie
Martine?
kind of brought up 2 issues there. One, the structure of the buildings, which is obviously important. So again, as a school committee, make sure that we're advocating for funding and things to make sure that we're getting buildings that are functional and safe for the students, and it can also help with education because they're not going to be distracted by like leaking roofs and things like that. And then also the other issue, like bringing weapons into the school and things like that. We need to review the policies and make sure that there's more transparency with the community, and that the community and the parents are aware of what's going on in the school. Because when these issues are happening, and it's from my understanding from talking with other parents and other people in the community, is that they're not hearing about the issues. They're finding out about it too late.
After the fact.
Yes, after the fact. And that's an issue because parents want to send their students to a school where they're going to feel safe. And if they don't know what's going on, how are they going to be able to feel safe? And again, this goes back to the issue of there not being trust. And this is one of the reasons why, is because there's not transparency.
Maria?
I agree with Brittany on the trust factor, and also to just, again, monitoring our current existing structures of our schools, making sure that, that the schools, got the good HVAC, avoid any, allergies as an example. But Other than that, I know that last year in our budgets, we did have one of our budgets, and one of our things that we were focusing on was updating our security system and intercom in the high school. So, I look forward to hoping that, we can get some good upgraded security systems in our schools in case if there's an emergency, some training, and maybe some additional staff.
We have another question here. The school committee, number 6 question. Here it is. There's a lot in here, so listen up. I can read it a second time if you need to. The receiver recently had the school facilities reviewed and found millions in maintenance needed at all the buildings except the middle and the high school. Given how costly and long the school projects have become, even with state aid, how does Southbridge afford to do them? If we can't, what do you see your options being? I'm sure you saw the article in the newspaper and out there in the news that there's a lot of renovation, a lot of work that has to be done on the schools. A lot
As
of money.
everything, our buildings are getting older. If I went to school in them, they are old. Roofs, we lost a roof at West Street last year, it just blew off. Windows are falling out. We have now, under the Massachusetts guidelines, a new deal. It used to be that you had to build a whole new school to get any money. Now you can apply to have a building fixed. You can get new windows, new doors, bring it totally up to code, because the handicapped laws are changing all the time. As Maria just mentioned, HVAC is becoming much more an issue. So now you can apply to have a building fixed, and we would get the 80% for having the building fixed rather than having to knock down one of our buildings and build a new one, which is waste, because some of the old parts of the old buildings are better built than any new building today.
So
Anybody else want to speak to that?
This is an interesting subject because we have 3 elementary schools that are going to need work. And what are the best options for the students while this work is taking place? So of course we want to hear from the company that is selected that's going to be doing the job, and have them come in and give the presentation as to what the options are, and that would be the less of making sure that these students aren't disrupted while they're going to school. So we need to get to that point first. With every project, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. So we need to actually look at the information, have those discussions, and make the best decisions based off that information going forward.
Brittany, Maria?
I agree with that, and I think, we need to prioritize what the top issue is as far as like safety for the schools, and then also look at creating a subcommittee to address these issues within the school committee, and also applying for different grants and things like that that can also help us fund the cost. And again, this is where the collaboration with the town council comes in for these things to be approved and brought to their attention, and again, addressing the issues of why we need these things fixed in the schools to help better the education of the students.
And that subcommittee would be facilities and maintenance. It would be one of the 5 subcommittees falling under the school committee. So you would have budget, you would have policy, you would have curriculum, you would have transportation, and you would have facilities and maintenance.
Can I be the chairwoman of that subcommittee?
Yes.
I do give it up to how the schools have been maintained, considering they were built in 1933. However, we would just definitely have to work with the subcommittee that is willing to take the time and dedicate for that big project. I would definitely love to see what our options are going to be, whether if it's going to be something that is going to be, such a big project that we'd have to get, the school building authority involved. But, again, we just have to put in that dedication and that time to be in that subcommittee, to be able to sit down and work with the state, because Chapter 70, we have that emergency aid fund, based on our contributions of what our town is giving and funding, and again, to see what's going to be our best case scenario. You know, a question was brought up whether if we were interested in consolidating schools. But then again, we'd also have to look to see if we even have the land to be able to do that. We need more, you know, we'll need more classrooms to accommodate all the children if we put, you know, all the students and children that attend the school if we were to consolidate. But, you know, I'm definitely if I was part of the school committee, would definitely start that subcommittee and get that ball rolling.
An interesting part of Gus's question, which I didn't read this part, I didn't want to confuse the matter with this, but listen to this fact that Gus had dug up about Bartlett's. Bartlett's currently going through their renovation, and their present renovation is nearly $100 million, $100 million, and it took 7 years to get the state funding. So if we're not at the point where we're looking at that report that just recently came out from the receiver and other committees, if we don't get started, we're 7 years behind in order to get the funding.
Not necessarily. We built the new middle high school, and we had conversations when I served on general government back in 2010, and we had the first class going into the new middle high school in 2012. My youngest daughter was part of that freshman class going into the new middle high school.
And that was fast-tracked?
So not necessarily. We can't compare it to Bartlett. That's just one example. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's what's going to happen.
Of course, that is one advantage of receivership.
Is that we're in the front of the line for funding. Always looking for that rainbow.
We'll take what we can get while he's still here, right?
The silver
Do we have any
lining.
questions from residents?
Here's school committee question number 7. How can the school system be more effective at promoting its successes while still fixing its problems? Kind of a positive, negative type question. How can they be more effective about telling people how good we are? Brittany, this is your question. You start, we'll give you 2 minutes and then we'll discuss.
So I think it goes back to building the relationship with the community. Right now, there's not really a whole lot of community engagement with people coming to the school committee meetings. And again, that goes back to us, you know, the town not having trust in us. So for me specifically, again, I've worked in the community. I talk to people. I collaborate with other organizations. And I think it's important that we start to build that relationship up again, and getting the community involved, again, with the local stakeholder group, having a student representative on the school committee so that the town is feeling like they're being heard and that we're actually doing the work to address the issues, and that will get more engagement from the community and let them see that we're actually taking steps to get us out of receivership.
We've got a few minutes to talk about this. Let's take 5 minutes to kind of discuss it amongst ourselves.
If we show the community that we're being transparent while we're doing the work, while we're working on the issues, while we're fixing the issues, and we continue to represent ourselves that way at each and every meeting, and we provide updates for the issues, that gives the community an idea of where the issue stands, what part of the timeline the issue's at, and we continue with that transparency and that communication to the community. Constant communication is key, so is transparency, and if we just keep doing that, then those successes will become available to us as a school committee. We'll be able to revel in them. We'll also talk about their failures and how we can do better, but just constant communication, keeping the community apprised of the issues that we're working on is key overall.
And you can do it?
And we also have to take consideration what we have all gone through with this epidemic, and there's I think more outreach and more marketing of our resources that we have would be key.
So just get out there and really communicate.
Yes.
I mean, we can't discuss anything if we go into an executive session. That is a given. But if there are issues on the agenda items at each school committee meeting that need to be addressed, then yes, by all means, we should be discussing them. We should be communicating to the public and keeping them apprised of the issues as they're being worked on.
What I'd like to see is more parent involvement. I know we say that over and over and over again, but we've lost, we have no PTA, we have we're supposed to have parent groups for English language learners for special ed.
For special ed.
For the elementary schools, each school is supposed to have a school council. If we had these people back in our schools, they would be a better source of information and communication. If you went in the first Monday of every month to your school and had a discussion with the principal and other parents, when you came out, you would be full of information and you would share it, and your neighbors would more likely believe you, unfortunately, than us.
I'd like to see Principal Roundtable come back once a month. It was very effective. It brought parents into discussion with the principal as to what was going on with the issues inside the school and how they were being addressed. It opened up the lines of communication between the principal and the parents. I'd like to see more incentives with parent engagement. One good example was the rolling rally for the cheerleaders when they won their competition, and that brought people out, not as many as I would have liked to have seen more support. And the issue with that was, from the feedback I received, was not everyone knew what was going on because the communication that was being sent out was on social media, but there wasn't really other forms of communication being used. So I think we should utilize all forms of our communication that we have at our disposal, whether it be phone blast, whether it be text blast, whether it be email. We should absolutely engage in that to try and engage the community more, especially the parents, especially the students.
Stephanie, when you mentioned that, I think you're talking about the parade, the Victory Parade downtown Southbridge as one example. It was argued that, yeah, I was out there on Facebook and all that. I miss the days of the daily newspaper where you could pick it up and keep track.
I do too. I
But we're
miss
not
our
going to bring
daily
the news
newspaper.
back, unfortunately, on a daily basis. We're fortunate
We
to
also
have
had
it.
a radio station. I miss the radio station. That was
Yeah.
a great source of communication to the community.
And
Yeah.
I think that goes back to Maria's point of making sure that we're marketing these ideas as the school committee. I think we're kind of all saying the same thing, but again, in order to do that, we have to build the trust with the community to even get them to want to participate in these activities. But I do think that we need to market them better. You know, the town council, the school committee, the school itself, market these things to show pride for our community.
I would actually like to see the school committee make themselves more available to the community as far as attending more public events, parents, open house within the school system, have more events where we can engage, if I'm elected to the school committee, with the public and be available to them to answer questions outside of the confines of the town hall. So get out there more, engage more with the public. We have a wonderful Family Fun Day every year on the town common. It would be a great event for school committee members to be available to the community.
See, it's starting to sound like a full-time job. It really is.
It is a
you know
full-time
what?
job
You're
at a
only-
volunteer level.
Exactly, but you're only volunteers, and when I say only volunteers, I mean the whole town appreciates people on the school committee.
But if you
on the
look at it
town
that way,
council.
Rich, really the work won't get done if you look at it that way. It is a
Yep.
lot of work, and it's going to be a lot of hard work.
Anything else to add? Anybody? We go to the next question.
Definitely just touch base with, you know, you go to birthday parties or you go to school events. They did a music and art event that was amazing. They consolidated all of the schools together to put a display of their artwork, their music talents, and it was awesome. Every teacher I seen that was there dedicating themselves for that event to display the talents of our students was amazing. I said thank you to all of them. Ask questions, you know, when you go to, you know, a birthday party, I do talk to all the parents. I do try to get feedback. My first question is, what do you feel about the schools? You know, as a parent, and I listen to their feedback, and, you know, again, they have all the answers.
Thank you. Now let's give you a chance to talk about yourself for a couple of minutes each, and we'll just go right down the line here. What aspects of your personal background qualify you to be on the school committee, and how would you use them? Do you have any special skills? Martina, this is a question for you. Any special skills that you can point out?
I knew my turn was coming up.
I'm giving you 2 minutes on this.
2 minutes.
Number one, I've been on the school committee for 6 years. Not only was I on the school committee for 6 years, I was on for 3 years in the early 1970s. I've taught in the Southbridge Public School. I've lived in Southbridge my whole life. But my main reason for asking you to vote for me is because I want to be part of the end of receivership. I have worked for 6 years when we couldn't even get enough people some days to have a quorum to have our meetings. To have 4 people running for 2 slots is so amazing to me. But I definitely am asking you to vote for me because I have this skill set, I have the background knowledge, I have been through this, I know the loopholes, and I would like to continue. I would like to be part of the day receivership ends. I was there in the auditorium the day it began. I would very much like to be there in the auditorium the day it ends.
Thank you, Martina. We will have some closing statements to make, but and that sounded a little bit like a closing statement.
It certainly did.
I still had one more question actually to ask after that, but I just want to go down the line. Maria, any special qualifications that people are going to say, I want to vote for that person because they can do this?
Absolutely. So my background is, well, when I was in high school, I started as a freshman until I was a senior, where one of my mentors that was with me since 2nd grade wanted to start a nonprofit called the Green Circle. It was an opportunity for students that were interested in doing teaching, and we got funding and raised money, did fundraising events as students with other students that were interested to raise money to support this nonprofit. So basically, the Green Circle was we would go as high school students and dedicate an hour of our day to go to 2nd graders. We focused on that growth development at that time to teach them about tolerance and diversity. That was 20 years ago. And so it was a great program that lasted about 4 years. You know, 2 of the people that did it became teachers, and our teachers till this day. It taught us on, you know, what it is to be a teacher and what it inquires. So it gave us an opportunity and a light of, you know, of in the future wanting to be an educator, and the meaning of being an educator. So I did that until I was a senior. I wish I would have been able to stay more and hand it down to the next upcoming class to do with it. So again, that's something that I'd like to offer to here in Southbridge, to give also not only that, but teaching some training as well as support of what it is to be an educator, because they are our future. Our kids are our future. They're going to be sitting in this seat in 2100. They're also going to, you know, be our future educators, and we want to motivate them, and we want them to also see what it is to be an educator. So programs like that was great, and it taught me on, you know, what it takes to be an educator and the importance of it. Also, too, after that, I was a permanent floating substitute teacher. I covered about 6 different schools in 2 different towns where I'm back home, and that was a great and interesting situation where I was able to see what teachers go through and, you know, and experience what it is to be a teacher.
Thank you, Maria. Stephanie, couple of minutes. Tell us what qualifications you have that will be special for the school committee.
Okay. So I have a background in IT. I've been in IT for the last 21 years as a technical engineer, but I also have a background in nursing and in criminal justice. I've also been an advocate for special needs. My oldest daughter is special needs, so I've been advocating for her for the last 34 years to ensure that services are provided in the school system as well as into adult life. I've also advocated for families affected by severe weather. When the June 1st tornado came through, I advocated for special services at the local and state level, and also provided monetary support to the families affected by both the June 1st tornado and Tropical Storm Irene. I feel like I've learned that over the years, I have been able to bring a valuable asset to the table as far as troubleshooting and investigating the issues and solving them. I also have a very thorough project management and business management background, and I've learned that effective leadership isn't about having all of the answers. It's about knowing which questions to ask. I also took part in coaching Lassie League early on in my adult career and worked with kids throughout in teaching them the game and the love of softball. So I believe that the students are the number one in this school system, and they should be provided with every opportunity in order to become successful in the adult world. So what I would bring to the table is effective listening, collaboration, working together as a team, and all of my knowledge throughout my years working in the corporate world to be able to bring the school system back to the school committee.
Stephanie,
you,
thank
Rich.
you. Just under 2 minutes as well. Brittany, you're the last one on this particular question. Special qualifications that you have.
Sure. So I mentioned this a little bit in my opening statement, but I have the skills of communication, collaboration, and advocating. As a social worker, one of the things that we learn is how to look at the big picture and understand all the different issues that are affecting the town and how that impacts our schools. I work with different organizations on the Town Manager's Substance Use Task Force and the Steering Committee. We've worked together in helping our community, creating different events to do some of the things that we're talking about, marketing, getting community involvement and things like that. I've collaborated with the Wellstorm in creating 2 bridge fridges that are at both the Southbridge and Webster location, which has helped advocate for the individuals I serve as a social worker at the hospital, addressing food insecurity, clothing insecurity, hygiene insecurity. So I know how to advocate for people when it's needed. And again, we work in an interdisciplinary team, so people with different knowledge and experience. We don't always agree on everything, and that's going to happen when we're on the school committee as well. And it goes back to having the right communication skills and making sure that we're focusing on what the issue is, which is the school, and making sure that we're focusing on the needs of the students.
Thank you, Brittany. Thank you very much. We have 2 more questions, and then we're going to be calling it a night here. And here's one of the questions. It's school committee question number 8. In what ways do you think the district can better collaborate with the town and actually with other districts as well? How can the school district do that? In what ways do you think the district can better collaborate with the town and with other districts? Brittany, this is your question. Take 2 minutes to answer, then we'll discuss.
Sure. So I think this was mentioned actually a little bit in the town council meeting that we just listened to before this, but there had been some steps already where we had collaborated with Holyoke and Lawrence and understanding kind of where they are in receivership. And to start that process with the town and with other districts, we need to have communication. And again, we need to work together as a team. And we need people who are going to be proactive, talk about the issues and actually do something about it and follow through. So we need to make sure that we're opening those lines of communications by starting. And if elected, that's exactly what I plan to do, is meeting with the receiver to hear what his thoughts are and where we are, explain mine, communicate with the other members of the school committee, talk with the members of the town council, and continue to start that process of communication, and that's where it needs to start.
And we can open up for discussion.
A great way would be to have joint meetings between the town council and the school committee. This way, both the town council and the school committee can communicate and discuss the issues that are on the table at that time, but it also provides open lines of communication. It also opens up the line for discussion about the issue, and it's been done before in this town. And so having that joint meeting of town council and school committee is a great way for the 2 entities to come together and communicate. And actually at the subcommittee level, there are joint sessions all the time between the subcommittees and the town council, and I believe we can also have that for the school committee and the town council as well.
There is a great deal of working with the surrounding towns and communities that kind of probably flies below the radar. We do a lot of joint purchasing of materials. Our health insurance and all of that is done in groups. Our sports are all working together. We send students to special area schools, special needs schools. All of these are because we are capable and we do work with other communities. Sometimes our relationships with the town council have not been as good as they should be, always basing on the fact that we think we should have more money, and they're not always willing to see that clearly. But things have been, in the last couple of years, really so much better. And I have to give them credit for that.
Did you get the impression, because you were here for the town council, or you at least saw some of what the town's council was saying, when they looked out at the school committee members, you or the potential candidates, they looked out at you and they said, we want to work together. Has that not happened in the past?
There have been good times and bad times. And as I said, mostly around money, not so much around the issues of the educational pieces of it, but the financial pieces of it. Everyone who has anything to do with any town project, whether it's the schools, the highways, the roads outside our houses, always think that we should be able to do it better and cheaper. Better and cheaper is not always the best way, as the council member said this very evening. What should we be doing? We're just working together, and as Maria said, communication. If they know what we're doing and they know what we need, things are always better.
Anybody else?
If we invite them to the table, they'll come. I mean, I think that's what was lacking before, was that the communication wasn't there. So just open up the lines of communication and send the invitation and see what happens, and I'm pretty sure they're going to attend.
We've gone through quite a few questions, exhausted all the ones that Gus had written and other people had suggested too. We talked about receivership, we talked about a number of issues, some of the troubles in the schools, we talked about MCAS, but we may have missed a question or two that maybe you thought we should ask. And my question to you, Martina, well, let's start with you and go around to each one of you. Is there a question that we should have asked you tonight, or you were hoping we would ask tonight, that you'd like to ask yourself now or ask other members of the committee, or just an issue that we didn't bring up that you want to bring up now? Take a couple of minutes.
Since I was here for the town council, I kind of thought ahead on this question. And my question is, how do we get good teachers and retain them? If we have administrators that work with our teachers, and we have, I hate to say it, but a pay scale that is comparable to the surrounding districts, we will keep our teachers. Our teachers like our kids. If you come to Southbridge, you know where you're coming, you know what the issues are, but you're the kind of person that wants to work with our kids, with our very, very specially wonderful, I love our kids, always have. But getting and keeping teachers, that would be my one question that I would have asked.
Well, one thing I would like to see, Rich,
I actually just want to go down the line on this one, because I want each person to have a chance. 2 minutes on these. Maria, is there a question that you thought we should have asked tonight that we didn't ask? Can you think of anything, or do you want to just continue with the discussion of that issue?
Well, the questions that were asked were really great questions. I feel like we covered a lot of the major topics, that our community is looking for as a school committee to, the goals and objectives. So pretty much just, can I say a comment rather than?
Oh, sure.
So, I just would like to see, everyone work together, everyone be transparent, and be able to have that trust where, you know, if one person can't show up for a meeting, let's just say go to Holyoke or, you know, or go to Boston or, you know, kind of just work as a team and a whole to figure out, you know, how to take our schools back and pretty much just continue. I appreciate all of those that have been serving on the school committee now. They're doing a great job, and we just need to continue getting great people on the school committee that is going to continue moving forward.
Thank you. Stephanie, was there a question we should have asked or something that we should have brought up that we didn't ask?
Do you believe the improvement plan is working? No, I do not believe the improvement plan is working, and I do not believe the improvement plan has worked for the last 8 years, and especially the last 6 years it's been in place. What we need to do is we need to dig into the key areas for improvement and make ourselves more knowledgeable of what those areas are. So in looking at attendance, and looking at dropout rates, and looking at suspension rates, and looking at curriculum, and looking at mental health and well-being, special ed services, we need to become more familiar with each one of these key areas for improvement, so that way we can then devise our own improvement plan going forward and address those issues and work to improve them. I do not believe the improvement plan in place is done that. I believe it's a failure. However, the receiver has gone back to DESE and has asked for 3-year extensions on this improvement plan and has been given 3-year extensions each and every time. And in the law, in the state law, the wording for if the improvement plan isn't working, then the receiver is either replaced or the improvement plan is either amended. So what's been happening is this improvement plan has just been filling in holes like a dam that has leaks and plugging those holes along the way. But it's time for the school committee to become more familiar with these key issues and address them head on and take leadership over them going forward, to be able to bring the school system back to the school committee. And one of the ways to do that is to gather the research and the knowledge and become more familiar with these areas for improvement and work on them together as a team to fix them one by one. Thank you.
Brittany, we'll let you answer that question too, or bring up a question that we should have asked.
So one of the things I think that we should have talked about is what our district is doing to address the special education issues. When talking with the community, a lot of what I heard from some parents was IEPs and things like that not being followed. I know that there is a CPAC, which is a parent-run committee for students with disabilities, and I think that the school committee needs to collaborate with them and have a better understanding on what the concerns are, which I think ties in, again, with some of the community engagement that we've talked about, along with teacher retention, and we need to make sure that we're addressing those issues as a school committee, and that's something I think, if elected, I want to make sure that we make as a priority.
Good
Okay,
question.
thank you very much.
Good question.
I have to say that some of these questions were very difficult for me to read, never mind answer. And when I heard the answers from all of you, I was impressed. And the problem is that voters can only vote for 2 of you. I thought it was 3, but it's 2. 2, Gus. I'm sorry. I had it written down, and I thought if I wrote it down, it must be fact. But it's 2 people that are going to be eliminated, or let's look at the positive side. 2 people are going to be elected to this school committee. And I wish you a lot of luck, and I don't know who I'm going to be voting for, to tell you the truth, because it's hard for me to choose. Thank you very much for watching tonight, but we do want to just go right down the line and do closing statements. I'll pull the names out of the hat and spend a couple of minutes, 2 minutes, and that's the camera you can look in if you want to look directly to the people at home or out here, or you can look at me, it doesn't really matter. But tell everybody why they should vote for you. Your closing statements, you have 2 minutes, and we'll start with Maria Torres.
First, I want to start off by congratulating our cheerleaders, you know, this year for working and trying their hardest to get to where they are at today. Also, too, I'm a parent, you know, and I want the best for my children, and I'm also a person that serves our community, so I want the best for our community as well. So let's just focus on the future of the education. Let's continue, you know, coming up with some plans and going to these schools, meeting with these admin and finding out what it is that they need, and also just continuing supporting, our community and listening more to what they need and moving forward. So I would, I thank you guys all for your support. I will be honored for your vote on June 11th.
Thank you very much, Maria. Martina Shea, you have 2 minutes for closing statements.
It seems I've already done my closing statement. What I would like to say now, again, is thank you to all of you who've been here. Thank you to those of you who are watching it live and who will be watching it. I also want, when you're voting, remember this turnaround plan, this one, the new one from the state, that we as a team, a school committee team, have already voted to work together. It has not always been our way to work together, but we have promised each other, and you've seen it on television, the workshop that we did, we have voted to work together. Be sure when you're voting that you vote for 2 candidates that you think are going to be able to work with the current school committee and the current receiver so that we can get this past us and we can be a real school committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Martina. Stephanie Rivers, your final comments, 2 minutes.
First off, I want to say congratulations to the seniors that will be graduating. You've done a lot of hard work to get here today, and now it's time to celebrate your success, so congratulations. I'd like to thank you, Rich, for being the moderator this evening and having this candidates forum. It was a pleasure to be up here and be able to speak on the issues for the school committee. I'd like to thank everyone in the audience and also those at home that are watching for tuning in tonight. And in returning the school system to the school committee, it's not going to be an easy job. It's actually going to be a lot of hard work. And to Martina's point, and with the plan that Desi put forth for the school committee, it is a good start, although it does need a little bit of work going forward. And hopefully, if I'm elected to the school committee, we'll be able to get some more definitions for that document going forward and some more guidelines. But we do need an effective and strong leadership in place at the school committee level. I'd like to see us transition out of receivership in the next several years and not have this lingering for longer than 5 years tops because we've been in it too long as it is. So if elected, I will do my best to represent every student, every parent, every teacher, and every resident of this community in establishing and ensuring that the children are provided with the opportunities, tools, and resources to become successful as adults. If you agree, then please come down to the community center on Tuesday, June 11th, and vote for me, Stephanie Rivers, candidate for school committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. And finally, Brittany Davison, your closing statements for 2 minutes.
Thank you. So again, I just want to thank everyone who helped put on the forum tonight, those who are here in the audience, those who will be watching or are watching live or will be watching later. I think everyone up here has the same goal, which is to get us out of receivership. I believe that I have the skills to not only be an advocate for the students, teachers, and families, but also help carry out the current plan that focuses on improving communications and collaboration to lead us to the change that we want to see, which is getting out of receivership. And I humbly ask for your vote for Brittany Davison on June 11th. Thank you.
Give them all a hand. Thank you very much. Well, thank you for tuning in tonight. It's a big commitment to spend 3 hours. We spent an hour and a half with the town council. We spent an hour and a half with the school committee, or close to it. And now it's your turn to vote. As Stephanie said, go down to the community center at between 7 o'clock in the morning and 8 o'clock at night. Or if you're one of the 1,500 people that requested ballots sent to you, bring them down and make sure that they get counted, make sure your vote gets counted. You have 4 people up here, all qualified. It's your choice to decide which 2. My name's Rich Merrill. Maureen Doyle, thank you very much for being our timekeeper tonight. And Gus Steve, otherwise known as the reporter at the Southbridge News. Thank you very much for providing these questions tonight and putting them all together and getting us all together tonight. And back in the booth there, Charlie, you did a great job. And he does sound, he does video. He's even going to clean up after we're all gone tonight. Thank you again. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next year. See you on June 11th at the voting polls. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
Thank you.